Working man trying to work for us again visits Aspen tomorrow in Colorado for the first time in 4 years. At least one debate between former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris is set. ABC News confirmed a debate on September 10th.
And I think ultimately they'll like me better because I'm going to give them security, safety, and jobs. I'm going to give them a good economy. We have a very bad economy right now. We could literally be on the throes of a depression, not recession, a depression. And they can't have that. They can't have that. So I think I'm going to do well with everybody.
Trump held a press conference in Mar-a-Lago last night for as long as reporters needed to talk to him. Meanwhile, Harris responded to a question on a tarmac for, I think, 60 seconds by the plane's engine. But this is day 19. 19 days since she's had a press conference, and one CNN host didn't like the fact that J.D. Vance walked over in front of Air Force Two because he happened to be there a couple of days ago to talk to the press about Harris avoiding reporters. Vance is... Man, he is so mean.
Again, for women, this is a huge election for women, women's rights, our sense of selves, our sense of not having people control our bodies and not having people control us. And so that's like stepping into her territory. It's this very the physicality of it is supposed to send a message.
Yeah. You know, it's going to be the first woman president. And that's incredibly exciting. And, you know, she's Indian, she's black, she's everything. You can.
Oh, yeah, little Benny Stiller for you this morning on a Friday, TGIF. What a surprise, a new report of a Romanian oligarch paying off Hunter Biden. It just never ends. Corruption on the left that will be swept under the rug again, I'm sure. Jonathan Turley.
He was getting money to influence U.S. policy from this Romanian. And it left everyone scratching their heads. It's like saying, you know, we can prove auto theft because we know he used it in the kidnapping. And the question is, well, why did you charge him on the kidnapping?
He'll skate again, I'm sure. His dad has a big interview on network TV that'll run this weekend. Don't expect him to throw anyone under the bus yet. Plus, it's recorded, and state-run media would never allow that anyway. Anyone living near the wildfire in Larimer County is urged to buy flood insurance right away. Monsoon season has increased the risk of flash floods. It happens after flames burn through vegetation that would normally absorb rainfall and runoff. The fate of hunting mountain lions is being left up to Colorado voters. The practice is legal in the state using packs of dogs. Hunters must take an online class, pass an exam, and present the remains to wildlife officers for inspection. But a group against this wants to ban what they call recreational trophy hunting of mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx. They gathered enough signatures to put an initiative on the November ballot. The trial of a Denver cardiologist accused of drugging and sexually assaulting many women has gone to the jury. Stephen Matthews faces 38 counts related to what prosecutors call a pattern of sexual assaults on 11 women. The jury will continue deliberations this morning. Austrian officials are giving more details about the foiled terror plot that they say targeted 3 Taylor Swift concerts in their country. Officials say the 19-year-old suspect arrested on Thursday confessed he planned to kill himself and a large number of people using explosive devices and knives. Hollywood's video game actors remain on strike. Spare me on that one, please. It's brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Braves in town tonight. The Rockies lost to the Mets last night. Broncos at the Colts this weekend in their preseason opener. Sadie McLaughlin, Barone, a world record in the women's 400-meter hurdles last night. It was incredible. Amazing athlete and race. Gold medal for her. The U.S. men over Nikola Jokic and Serbia in the semifinals in basketball. 53 in Castle Rock, 56 in Lakewood, and 59 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. Yes. TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
For you today. In a minute, we're going to get into the bad news that Americans have a record credit card debt. What is that going to play out for the upcoming election? And then this fascinating article, an analysis on what's happened to Wikipedia. The regime has now captured Wikipedia, and it's become a tool of the radical left. And then the Wall Street Journal had a really important article on the development of life-saving medicine around premature children. This hits a little personal for me, Billy, because our firstborn was born at 27 weeks, super early.
It's very early.
And at that point, this was 15 years ago, that a baby born at that age was right on the edge. They've now got the medicine down to 22 weeks.
That's incredible.
Gestation. They can be saving these children at that point, and more than half of them are going on to live just perfectly healthy lives. So we'll cover that. Great article by the Wall Street Journal. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, Tulsi Gabbard will be joining us to talk about being put on a TSA terror watch list.
Yeah.
Simply because she questioned and criticized Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. That's what it seems to be the reason, because it happened the day afterwards. So some whistleblowers from the air marshals exposing this whole scheme.
And I want to go sideways just for a sec here. I got to give Blake Olson a shout out. How strong is Blake when he pulls Paul Cardcastle's song 19? Dude. That's like mid 80s. That's tough. That is strong. I'm going to bring up Blake's mic. Dude, again, shout out to you, man. That Paul Hardcastle thing.
That's
do that. You are the best.
Jeff's going, what?
Yeah, he's like, shut up, old guys.
No, you said, yeah,
Paul
90.
Hardcastle.
Yes,
I heard that.
I know, exactly.
Every time I hear the number 19, that's song hits my head.
Exactly.
Yep. No, 19.
Yep.
19.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry.
We could do it. I'm sorry. Okay. So thank you so much, Blake. You rock. You are the best. We do not deserve you. Okay.
Yes, you do.
Now back to your regularly scheduled part of the program. Sorry. That was so tough. He nailed that. That was so cool. Okay, sorry. I apologize. I had to give him
This
some
guy
shout out
looks
there.
like he was an 80s magician.
Oh, totally.
Magician.
Yeah, and it basically it's his only hit. He didn't do anything else, and it's a song that was written by somebody else. In fact, I was telling Blake off air, I think originally it was done by in country. It just there's something in the back of my head that is telling me it was a country song because I ran across it when I was doing some research back when I was young Billy was in his teenage years looking at the song. So yeah, but if you were a kid of the 80s, that song hits immediately. I told Blake it hit the first 2 beats, and I'm like, oh. I knew exactly what that was. And John, doing the video down the hall, yells out loud when it goes. Yeah. See? Yeah, it's fantastic. It's early electronic. It's before a lot of the sampling and rap gets big and things like that. It's a really good example of electronic and early manipulation of the sound and things. So yeah, it's kind of cool. Sorry about that. Had a nerd for a sec. That was so amazing. I love Blake. Yes.
That's awesome.
I know.
Well,
my rabbit holes.
Not awesome. Americans owe a record $1.14 trillion in credit card debt as inflation squeezes them. This reporting from Fox Business. Americans are increasingly turning to their credit cards to cover everyday expenses, with debt hitting a new record high at the end of June, according to a New York Federal Reserve report published on Tuesday. In the 3-month period from April to June, total credit card debt rose to $1.14 trillion, an increase of $27 billion, or about 1% from the previous quarter, according to the report. It marks the highest level on record in Fed data tracking going back to 2003. Credit card delinquencies continued to rise from their pre-pandemic levels in the second quarter. As of June, about 9.1% of outstanding credit card debt was in some stage of delinquency, up from 8.5% the quarter before. But when you get this down to personal numbers, Billy, the average American has $6,329 in credit card debt.
Actually, I thought it would be higher. I was that number for me when I'm looking at it, I'm like, that seems low. I thought it would have been closer to 10K. It's just out of my guess, because there are a lot of number reasons for this, in my opinion, and some of them we can even do the Paul Hardcastle callback, and some of that belongs in the 80s. As far as the desire for consumerism, the idea of keeping up with the neighbors, and that is a large drive. The other part, and this is kind of a weird philosophical question, you and I can kind of do this one, just because the nature of the show is there something that is hardwired in America for us to live on debt because of how we run the country, because of how we run our government?
They do it. Why can't we do it?
Exactly. And what we hear all the time from the politicians is about, oh my God, the debt's crushing us. And you have very eloquently said, how has the increase in the debt ever impacted your personal budget, life, spending? And it's negligible, if at all. And I think that's why we have a view of large debt not necessarily being that bad of a thing. One of our presidential candidates talks about himself being the king of debt and has declared bankruptcy at least 4 times. So it's not that unusual, and that's not a negative for him to be running for the head of the country. And so should it be a negative that you might go into bankruptcy, or someone else might, or you might not be able to afford it and you've got to live on the credit card? That's what America does. So in many ways, $6,000 in debt is oh so American. I'm going to go talk to the phones. I'll be right back.
So I have a few thoughts on this. One, I think this is an indicator of how bad the economy is for the average person, right? So we'll get into the talk about GDP, stock markets, corporate growth, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when it comes to people and their real lives, the fact that they're putting more and more of their basic groceries onto their credit card and driving up debt in order to just try to make it happen, the lifestyle they may have had 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think this is indicative of the fact that for the average person, things aren't going so well. And that's in part because of inflation. We all know that the average person has to spend, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 more just to be able to live their lives the way they did 4 or 5 years ago because of this. So that stress that's been put on them is showing up in credit card debt. Okay. And the average American doesn't just get to print money the way the federal government does. There are real consequences to this. You've got to, this is going to affect your ability to take out a car loan, a home loan, a school loan, your credit score, all that stuff. So I think, one, it's indicative of the idea that the policies are not good right now the economic policies are not good for the average American, and they're putting the stress off, willing to pay it off later in order to just try to get by in the hopes that things are going to get better. I've said this multiple times. Most people I know are working 2, sometimes 3 jobs just to get by. That's where we are now. And then the American dream that I think, Billy, a lot of us grew up with, the idea that you could have a single income around $80,000 and be able to have a nice home, maybe save up for like a boat or a toy or something like that, put your kids through college. That's going away. I think most families, you got 2 people working jobs just to try to make it. And I'm not sure I fully understand why that's the case. Why is it that you have to, I think I saw a stat the other day that you've got to earn like $240,000 a year to match what it was like earning $80,000 a year in the 1980s.
Yeah, absolutely.
That everything has just gotten so crazy expensive. And then aside from the politics side of this, man, this is where I get into the Dave Ramsey world of, if you don't have it, you can't spend it.
Yeah.
Has got to be something that's communicated better to the next generation, because the current generation is happy to get it. If they can't pay for it, somebody else will figure it out. I mean, Billy, I watch all this stuff. The car repo guys on Instagram have huge followings because they're out there just repoing cars all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's a cultural element to this too, that we don't teach personal finance to the kids, and they walk into adulthood having no idea how to build wealth for the future.
And unfortunately, the people that we have running our government don't exhibit any sort of fiscal responsibility, and at times even reflect not understanding economics at all. And I will put third-party candidate JFK Jr. in the spotlight on this one. A couple of months ago, he talked about reforming the lending practices in America. And he made this neat little thing about not everybody has a rich uncle that can co-sign on a loan with them. And he's done this thing kind of a number of times. And he says, well, now everybody's going to get a rich uncle. It's going to be the United States of America. He wants the United States of America in his proposal to be the co-signer on first-time home buyers that have low credit scores because they can't get a high enough.
RFK said this?
Yeah, because their percentage rate is too high. So he wants to lower it. He wants the government to underwrite it so all new home buyers that can't qualify for a regular loan get a 3% mortgage, and the loan's guaranteed by the government. So RFK is saying the people that can't currently qualify for a bank loan, America needs to pick up the tab if they can't pay their mortgage. Not only are we going to underwrite it, we're going to pick up the tab.
He just wants to live through 2008 all over again.
Exactly. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, what do you honestly think is going to happen in that situation? And that's about him absolving people of their personal and financial responsibility, not making it better.
Oh, yeah. When you go back to 2008. Oh, do we still have Eric?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, someone else was ringing and I didn't get to him in time. I'm sorry. Call back and I'll get to you. Apologize. It's busy back here. And all the voices in my head.
Billy and I trying to do it all.
Exactly.
So here's what happened in 2008 with regards to the destruction of the housing market that led to the collapse and then everything we had to crawl out of for years. The left looked at successful people and said, successful people buy homes. Therefore, rather than encouraging people to be successful, they encourage people to be homeowners. So they always jump. This is what I've noticed about the left. They always jump to one of the kind of benefits of being a successful person rather than encouraging people to be successful people. So what do I mean by this? So like I said, they'll look at somebody who's done well in life and they'll go, okay, they went to college. They bought a home. Therefore, let's make it as easy as possible for people to go to college or to buy a home, not figure out how to be a successful person in order to achieve those, but let's give the ancillary benefits first in the hopes that that will somehow trigger and allow people to become successful. So what happens in that case? You get people that should have never gone to college, racking up student loan debt. You get people that never should have bought homes, now owning sometimes 1, 2, 3 homes. This is what happened in 2008, because they got rid of basically any standard by which you should be measured in order to own a home. And so they just piled on debt to these people, and it just compounded. We've never really had to pay for the college debt thing, but that was something that I've always think is going to come next, and has kind of Joe Biden's desperate effort to offset that and forgive it. But again, just debt. And now you see that people in their own personal lives have an average of $6,000 of credit card debt. Yeah. And with today's interest rates, you're going to be well up over $8,000 in total paying that thing off if you just made the bare minimum monthly payments. So
it'll take years. It'll take years. And you're right. And you're right about that and how we approach our debt. And another problem that we have here in America is that when we look at debt, there's a fulcrum that if you're a small earner and you maybe have an apartment, maybe you've just bought your first house or a condo, and you get yourself backwards as far as debt, then you can lose everything. But if you start a company and you have a large enough company and employ enough people, the government will save you when you get enough debt to crash your business. That's a problem because the encouragement is to run up the debt. The encouragement is if you can get big enough and run up your own debt, we'll take care of it for you. But if you're the little guy, you're on your own. Sorry about that. Yep. And then everyone sees that debt doesn't matter. And in fact, Jeff, didn't get a chance to text you on this, but we've got a guy, Bill from Denver. He's in his car right now, and we'll get to Eric in a second. Let Eric know that he's going to have to wait just for a second. But Bill has decades of experience being a money manager, and I wanted to include him on this conversation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for calling Jeff and Bill show. That's really weird to say. 710 KNUS. How you doing today?
Doing fine, thanks. So, this unfortunately is entirely predictable. It is what happens to rich societies is they start thinking of themselves as rich. And so they stop doing the things that got them there, which is working hard and saving hard. And, it can kind of be summed up in the word complacency. And so, America finds itself in, I think, a very predictable situation where we're over leveraged. And on top of that, we're underfunded. Underfunded means is if you look at entitlements and stuff, $77 trillion underfunded. There's only one solution here, and that's to continue to borrow money. And when you continue to borrow money, that will create inflation. And frankly, for all of us living here, that's the better alternative, because the alternative is recession and depression. And if that sounds kind of like a bad scenario, well, I think it's where we find ourselves. And so when you look at the enormous buildup in debt in almost every sector, whether it's consumers, governments, etc., it's just the way it is.
Wow. Now, Bill, I got a question for you. I'm going to give you the Jeff and Bill show magic wand, and I want you to predict the future. Again, we're not going to hold you to this solid prediction, Bill, the money manager. This is just complete and total speculation because you have been handed the magic wand. I want you to wave it and do two things for me. One, tell me when you think we are going to reach a tipping point that debt is unserviceable, and wave that magic wand and tell me what the solution could possibly be outside of just borrowing more money. What would we have to do as Americans?
So the first thing is, I don't think there's, quote, a tipping point. I think it's just an ongoing process, and we're right in the middle of it. And you made reference earlier to politicians going, well, we got too much debt. And then we turn around and get another $1 trillion. I think in the last 4 or 5 months, it's how long. So that's all talk. There is no alternative to that other than to accept the fact that you're going to accept lower standards of living right now And nobody wants to do that. No politician wants to do that. You and I don't want to do that. So I don't think there's a tipping point. I think it's just inexorable, slowly decline of our standard of living. That's what I think. And as far as the magic wand, I don't think there is a magic wand. I don't think there's any way to change that course. And so what we tell our clients is, let's deal with us as individuals and see what we can do as individuals to mitigate the effects, or maybe even to benefit, because there are ways to benefit. But as a whole, I just think we're in an inexorable slide because we're complacent.
You know, Bill, you perfectly are a money manager, because you gave me a little bit of hope and a little bit of depression. A little bit of hope on the idea that there isn't this crashing point, but it is a slow degradation of our standard of living. So hopefully then it does give us an opportunity to change. And then you're like, yeah, there's no real practical solution. We're not going to change this, and nobody wants to. And then you made me sad. So yeah, but good job. I think you're right.
No, Bill, I got a question for you. It seems like in my world, some people are getting very serious about the kind of Dave Ramsey approach of we don't live off of credit card debt, cut up your credit cards, only have a debit card, don't go out to dinner on the weekends, save. It seems like there is an element in which that is growing. In your case, decline. Is that becoming more popular as people don't want to deal with credit card debt? Because the government can print money, but the average person can't. And there are real serious consequences for going into debt or having to file for bankruptcy. So are you seeing an element of kind of growing sense of we need to get our finances under control? Or is it, like you mentioned, we're just going to continue to go this way and hope that it works out at some point?
Well, people like me and my associates, we see people who are kind of serious about their finances. And yes, those people are savers and eschew debt and stuff. And so that's true. But then when you look at the statistics about $1.1 trillion of credit card debt, and then you look at all the other factors, on average, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I mean, I sure appreciate having. Go ahead.
I read just yesterday, if you travel around the world, you come to this conclusion that Americans on average are more obese than most of the world. But I saw a report this just recently that Gen Xers are exercising more than any generation in American history. And so, there are people out there that will look at this and say that doesn't make sense to me. But we are part of a whole, and that whole is heading in an increased debt situation. Frankly, inflation's going to be here, I predict. It's not going to change. And we should be happy about that, because the alternative to that is declining prices, and that makes servicing your debt harder, maybe even impossible. So you need to borrow money to keep the wheel spinning.
Oh, that's a little scary.
Bill, really appreciate the call. I got one last question for a listener that was happened to be listening today. They have that average of $6,000 of credit card debt. They don't want it. It's become a problem for them. What's your recommendation? What are the baby steps they need to take in order to start moving towards a better financial health?
Stop going to the mall. Stop spending money that you don't have on things you don't need at prices that you can't afford. Stop going out to dinner. Those are your baby steps.
Bill, it's great to have listeners like you and your expertise. Thanks for taking the time to join the Jeff and Bill show today.
And have a great weekend. Appreciate you. That was really cool. That was awesome.
That is cool to have folks. I love our listeners,
and it was interesting.
Smart people.
They're so smart. And it was interesting to see that Bill kind of went back to your question there and the answer about Dave Ramsey, about living within your means. And I do believe that it is about baby steps, that there are these small things that you can change in order to make a big difference. Again, nothing happens right away. In our household, we call it leaks, and go through the budget. And you look at where money is leaking out of the budget. And those leaks are things like, oh, I'm going to stop here for Starbucks because I'm running late in the morning. Oh, wait, I don't really feel like making dinner. We're going to go out and drop money on takeaway. Oh, wait. I really like this thing that I saw online, so I'm going to go and buy it. Or I'm going to go and buy this. We don't really need this. And so when you add those little things up, it can be a lot of money. When we talked about gas prices getting so high. There was a comedian out there that said, yeah, gas prices are getting high, but wait until everybody figures out paying $8 a gallon for coffee at Starbucks. That's going to change things. And that's kind of the idea. That's right. Where you're leaking. Yeah, that's where it is, my friend.
Well, speaking of good deals out there for you, I want to talk to you about Mountain High Appliance, and they've cooked up some very tasty deals, Billy, for your kitchen. Now, for a limited time, receive up to a $3,000 rebate with the purchase of qualifying GE Cafe appliances. Enjoy the Mountain High Appliance price match guarantee and special financing options. Visit one of their 4 locations for all the details and upgrade your kitchen with GE Cafe appliances in Denver at East 64th, Littleton, Louisville, and Glenwood Springs. Mountain High Appliance. Experience the difference. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill show.
Jeff, I gotta say, their Mountain High Appliance there. I gotta put a shout out to them. They have some test kitchens and things that are contained inside where you can look at it and see how things work together. You can come in and you can actually turn things on, turn things off, see what would look good inside of your kitchen. The other thing is you can trust them with, they know the discounts and deals that you don't. They're going to come in, and when you say, hey, I like this, they can talk about how they can get you different manufacturer discounts and different sale discounts, and they'll stack. You can get multiple things stacked on top of each other and save yourself a pile of cash. If you want to make the change, want to make that kitchen better, you want to make the family happier with how quickly dinner sits on the table every night, go talk to Mountain High Appliance. They are not going to steer you wrong. They'll take care of you. They're great people. Yeah, seriously, visit them, please.
And speaking of not going out to dinner and eating at home, you need to have good appliances. So Mountain High Appliance. Thank you, Bill. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's get to the phone lines. Eric, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Hey, Jeff, you great American.
Eric?
Hey, Billy.
Morning.
Hey,
You
buddy.
guys-
How are you?
I don't know if I'm dreaming or if I'm up, but now that I'm talking to 710 KNUS, I must be up. On Chris Salcedo show.
We're
on
ready for
Newsmax.
you. What's up?
On Chris Salcedo show on Newsmax, I saw
Yeah.
that. Have you guys heard about this? About Trump? The 2020 election board voted 3-1
Yeah.
to reinvestigate. Oh, you have?
Yeah, Fulton County. Yeah, they voted 3-1 on party
Okay.
lines to reopen the investigation, and they're asking
I
the
mean,
AG's office to do it.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to happen.
Yeah, and
And I've heard nothing from, just that show. I haven't heard you guys mention it or anything.
Yeah,
Nobody.
well, Erica, help me understand why you think it's a big deal? Why is it a big deal to reopen that investigation?
Because once for you, Billy, because you said it was not a fraud, and they have proof. Now they have human
they?
proof. When you and Peter both was talking about that, there was no steal.
What's the proof that they have so far, Eric? Oh, Eric, I
Well,
think your cell phone's breaking up. Yeah, what is it?
first and foremost, the state board election chair, John Purvier, has voted it in.
I know, but I'm asking for the proof. He can vote. I mean, the state board, the guy in charge of the state board, can vote in belief in aliens. He can vote in. He can vote in the entire county needs to be Satanist. It doesn't make it right, true, or anything else. So what's the proof we have of the fraud?
Well, the spokesman, Joe Rossi, had said that Georgia owes President Trump an apology on the steps of the state Capitol building. Yeah. That's the proof enough for me. I mean, it's already 2024, Billy. It's almost, November to vote. And then they're still having, they're convinced now that they have human proof.
Yeah, I got a question for you. If someone else that disagrees with the gentleman you just referenced stood on the steps of the Capitol and said, this is a solid election, there's no proof of fraud, would you believe them? Because so far, the only proof the gentleman on the steps of the Capitol said is his opinion. He didn't provide anything, but he convinced you. So again, help me get to that. Where's the proof?
I'm going on common sense for what I saw and what I heard.
Yeah.
And why are they allowing this to happen?
Can you explain to me why
that's the proof.
Yeah, then can you explain to me why the previous audits that included an actual hand count didn't discover that fraud? Why did that not find the fraud that you're convinced of?
I guess they found something else different, Billy. I don't know. I just saw it yesterday, and I'm excited about it because, I just was wondering, what Tampon Tim and Hayden Harris is going to do about it if it does come into fruition.
Well, here's the thing.
And what we're going to
Let's do two things. Let's do two things here, Eric. First of all, the reason that they're going back in and investigating, because I did do a little bit of research on this, is they found some accidental duplicate count of votes. The number they found is not significant. It's in maybe a dozen or less from what I've seen. So there's no indication it will be large enough by any imagination.
Would you admit that there's thousands?
Well,
Would you admit that there's thousands?
No,
okay.
No, but not based on the percentage that we've seen so far. And I'm just saying that based on what they saw, we can't really extrapolate that there would be thousands or enough to overturn any of the results in any of the counties. The other problem with this is, okay, let's say we go back and we say, oh my gosh, here in this county, this election was done and there were mistakes. Because again, the double counting of ballots doesn't seem to be intentional, which would be part of the fraud. If you're trying to defraud someone, it needs to be intentional. And if they came back and said, oh my gosh, look at this. Even if they flip the votes over for Trump, what is the remedy? We're in 2024. We can't jump in a time machine and go back, and there's no mechanism or process to place Donald Trump into the White House. So it is interesting as far as an investigation, but at the end of the road, it does not accomplish anything. I'm with you that, yeah, sure, if you want to investigate again, fine. I think this is number 5 or 6 in the county. So far, nothing has turned up significantly. The problem is, and before you start holding a pep rally and getting excited about it, the result you're looking for on the end doesn't exist. So I'm just cautioning you to be careful about your enthusiasm as to what you expect to have happen.
Well, my thing is that it just showed that President Trump was right all the time. If in fact it comes out, again, in the Republicans in our favor. So, and then.
And what if the investigation?
They're going to have to drop. Them charges and the apologies that's going to have to happen to, and then showing that the Democrats did get caught cheating on that election.
Now, what happens if the investigation doesn't show what you believe it does? What happens then? Because the previous investigations haven't shown what you've concluded, but those have not convinced you. Would this investigation convince you if they come to the conclusion that there wasn't enough fraud or duplicate votes or mistakes that would have cost the election for Trump? Will you accept that?
Yep.
Just this one, not the previous investigations. Those you couldn't accept, but this one you'll accept.
I'm talking about Arizona, Vegas. It's going to trickle down.
I'm just talking about Georgia. So if they come back in this investigation, not the other 4, because you don't care about the other 4, even though they found no fraud. If this one finds no significant fraud, you're going to be like, yep, no fraud. You'll say yes, or will you say, well, they just didn't look hard enough?
I just told you. I'll concede.
Okay.
But not the evidence and what I saw and what I heard. Yesterday,
I appreciate that.
Chris,
Eric,
go ahead.
I really appreciate hearing your voice. It's nice to hear your voice on the show again. I appreciate the phone call. And do me a favor, man. Let's keep tabs on this and give us a call in, give us an update on this, and let's talk about it when the investigation's concluded. And let's see what happens. I'm
just excited as hell, and I want everybody else to do some research to see how far we're going to go on this one.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Also, hey,
Eric's
let's tell
a
everybody,
great American from Stapleton.
He makes the most incredible burritos. Where are you going to be today? If people wanted to grab one of the delicious burritos, one of the best breakfast burritos in Denver, where can they find you this morning?
Thank you for that. I got to take something out to Kim Munson. I might stop through there and bring you and Jeff and Blake a few, but.
Don't worry about us, my friend.
My cancer's kind of kicking up. I can't walk right now.
No, don't worry about that, man. Just make sure. Now, if you are selling them out to the public, let us know, man. We'll help you out. Okay, we appreciate you.
God bless you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being part of the family.
Thanks, Eric. Always appreciate Eric's call. And Billy, I'll tell you that I think conservatives are leading with their gut on this one.
Yeah.
And they're not always wrong. So, you're right, Billy, in the sense that the facts have to be there. If the facts aren't there, you can't continue to pursue it. But conservatives were right on COVID generally about where it came from, the efficiency and effectiveness of the vaccine, of the mask mandates, of all this stuff, shutting down churches while keeping pot stores and strip clubs open. They were right on Joe Biden being out to lunch and not effectively leading this country. So I've noticed, Bill, on the election issue, conservatives go, something stinks. I don't know what it is. And in other cases, when they've gone, something stinks, they tend to be right. But to your point, the facts have to be there. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Back to the Jeff and Bill Show on this Friday, August 9th. Americans owe a record $1.14 trillion in credit card debt as inflation squeezes them, Fox Business reporting. That's an average of over $6,300 in credit card debt per family, or actually per person. Yikes. That's a lot. Let's go to the phone lines. Frank, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning.
Morning. I called in to partially agree with your financial guy, but greatly disagree in one of his contentions that it's inevitable that we have to have this inflation and continue in it. I think you're right about Dave Ramsey. He's made a good living out of teaching millions how to get out of debt. It's just common sense, 8th grade math to live within your means, plan for your budget. I don't like that word budget, but a different way of thinking about it is to have a role for every buck or every dollar that goes out of your house. What's this little dollar doing for me? And he's got a good program on a different channel, 760 at 7 o'clock. And if you want to hear pain, listen to that show. And people who are continuing to try to live beyond their means and keep up some superficial lifestyle and wind up in all kind of trouble.
Yeah, Frank, I just for a sec, there's something that has been big inside the younger generations right now, and they're seeing it on those shows like with Ramsey and others, where the kids can't, I say kids because of all of our ages in the conversation, those kids can't buy houses. And so they're doing things like using the credit card to purchase big vacations or get themselves way upside down in a car, where we would spend $80,000, $90,000, $125,000 on a house at their age. They're spending that on a car and quickly finding out that they don't have the means to pay for it and ruining credit.
Well, first of all, if you listen to him, he doesn't preach any of that. And he preaches driving old beater cars.
Yeah.
I know you like cars, but you're a hardworking guy, got 2 or 3 or 4 jobs.
And I drive old ones. All of them are old. And my car's 23 years old.
That's right. I do too. That's the trick.
Exactly.
And if you enjoy that, do it as long as you can. But, it's wrong for a kid that doesn't make any money to go out and pay that. And that's an education piece on his part, to learn that. And the Ramsey has got a bunch of books, and he's even hired a psychologist, John Deloney, that's got a book about anxiety, and these money problems have caused a lot of anxiety. When you start saving a little bit, you lose that anxiety. And he's put together a great program, and if you learn a lot just by listening to these people call in about their mistakes. And
Frank,
things.
My daughter.
I don't agree with RFK trying to start another government program to gain votes to try to do the wrong thing for a young kid with a 3% thing. The thing is to save money, to have some down money, and eventually it'll come, rent for a while, live with your parents, whatever, get to build up some money. There's a lot of different ways.
There are, and I noticed my daughter registered for classes yesterday. She's transferring to a new school, and one of the classes she registered for is personal finance. So,
that's wonderful.
Maybe we're finally getting the right stuff into our education.
And Frank, thanks for the phone call. Don't think we didn't notice you cheated on us this morning with the Hugh Hewitt show, my friend. Yes, I did. No, I heard you. You're the best, Frank. I hope you have a great weekend. I heard you this morning. You did a great job.
We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill shows. Wikipedia going woke.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center. Sometimes pretty crazy, too, but it's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're kicking off a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts. This is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news with Blake Olson, I want to get into this. Found this article fascinating from Pirate Wires, how the regime captured Wikipedia inside the Cultural Revolution at Wikipedia, which pivoted it from a decentralized database of all the world's knowledge to, you guessed it, a top-down social activism and advocacy machine for the left. We'll give you some details and more on this so you can understand what's happening to Wikipedia out there. And Billy, I'm just going to go back to a statement that Chris Murray said on this show, which just rings so hollow to me, that if the left doesn't own it, they will attack it. They've got to own it. So in this case, they now own Wikipedia. Yeah, right. So let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 58 and cloudy, expecting a high of 75 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
We want to have a strong military. We want low interest rates, and we want to be able to have the American dream. We want to be able to have our youth be able to buy homes, housing, get good jobs. And we're really just at the opposite right now. It's so sad to see.
Former President Trump holding another press conference last night. He doesn't shy away from anything, answers all questions from anyone and everyone. He'll be in Aspen tomorrow, in Bozeman, Montana today. It'll be the first time in 4 years that he's been in Colorado. At least one debate between Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris is set. ABC News confirmed a debate on September 10th. Trump knows that mail-in ballots are creating a lot of corruption in this country.
We have no borders. We have bad voting regulations. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have problems. France learned that lesson. You know, France had all mail-in voting, and they went back to paper ballots, voter identification, voter ID. They went back to a normal system, one-day voting. They don't want to be around, voting for 64 days. And look, the election, I keep talking about November 5th, but the election really starts on September 6th. That's when it starts because it's early voting. We should have one-day voting. We should have paper ballots. We should have voter ID, and we should have proof of citizenship.
Yes, and should be a holiday. Meanwhile, Harris responded to a real quick question on the tarmac near a plane engine about the debate for about 60 seconds. But this is Day 19.
Yay.
Just for Billy. 19 days since she has had a press conference, answered questions from reporters. Maybe that'll happen today. Don't hold your breath. Microsoft says hackers based in Iran have been trying to break into the account of a high-ranking official on the U.S. presidential campaign. They were discovered in June. And a new report of a Romanian oligarch paying off Hunter Biden. The corruption on the left continues. It'll be swept under the carpet again, I'm sure. Jonathan Turley.
He was getting money to influence U.S. policy from this Romanian. And it left everyone scratching their heads. It's like saying, we can prove auto theft because we know he used it in the kidnapping. And the question is, well, why did you charge him on the kidnapping?
Man, he made a lot of money and blew a lot of money. He'll skate again, I'm sure. President Biden, he's still alive and has a big interview on network TV that'll run this weekend. And don't expect him to throw anyone under the bus yet. Plus, that interview was recorded in state-run media. They won't allow it anyway. And it's still, even though he's out of the real scene, and he is still the president, if you do remember that or you've forgotten. People living in a recently condemned apartment complex on Nome Street in Aurora say they need more time to find a new place to live. The tenants have been given 6 days to relocate. Management claims the complex has been condemned because it's been taken over by Venezuelan gangs. While the city says it's because of the building's poor living conditions and code violations. House Keys Action Network,
Hey, Blake,
Denver.
on that note, our good friend of the show, John Fabricatori, was texting this morning about it, how these kind of news agencies are covering up the real problem. They're out there saying that it's the tenant that's the problem. It's the tenant that's the problem in this particular Aurora apartment complex. And Fabricatori was pointed out the tenant left because of the crime. It's gotten so bad. These gangs, these Venezuelan gangs were kicking in doors and taking control of the apartment complex. The tenant was like, I'm getting the heck out of here. In fact, the crime was so bad, it was listed on an escort, like a must escort any paramedics. So police have to escort any paramedics. And they listed this address in particular. And out there, the media is going, well, it's the tenant's fault. That's why the condemnation's happening. No, it is the crime's fault. Fabricatori was honest. He's staying on it. This guy is like a dog on a bone. He will not let it go. And I appreciate him. I just want to give a shout out to Fabricatori. If you're not following him on Twitter, do, because you're going to get the news. Plus, do better Denver. They're the ones who are providing the real coverage on this stuff.
Amen to that. And that's just, that's a great example of how the media works, really. I mean, and then you get a story like that. And I was reading you what they wrote, and I was about to echo what you just said right there. And it's just, you see it locally, regionally, and nationally. And that's how the that's how the
you got to stay on top of these guys.
Oh, you have
to. They're
no
regimes.
Doubt. Absolutely,
they're all led by the same talking points. They want to hide anything that may harm their friends politically. And then you get good folks, Danielle Jurinsky, Fabricatori, Do Better Denver, which are actually. This is why, thank God, we have X that's kind of keeping some of this stuff available for us, so we can get the truth.
Oh, it's just like the assassination attempt. I mean, if it were not for the independent media, I mean, you would think that thing never happened.
They almost blew his head off 25 days ago.
Amazing. I mean,
and we don't know
those people
anything.
Still have their jobs. I mean, all those guys should be blown out. No pun intended, but all of them. I mean, they're still being paid. They have all their they have all their benefits. It's sickening. It really is.
It is.
The deep state. Anyone living near the wildfire in Larimer County is urged to buy flood insurance right away. Monsoon season has increased the risk of flash floods. It happens after the flames burn through the vegetation that would normally absorb rainfall and runoff. The trial of a Denver cardiologist accused of drugging and sexually assaulting many women has gone to the jury. Stephen Matthews faces 38 counts related to what prosecutors called a pattern of sexual assaults on 11 women. The jury will continue deliberations this morning. All right, the Braves are in town in Lodo at Coors Field. Rockies lose to the Mets last night. The Broncos at the Colts this weekend, preseason opener.
Nobody has ever won 2 gold medals in this event, let alone back-to-back. Sydney McLaughlin-Barone. It's a world record.
Sadie McLaughlin-Barone, a world record in the women's 400-meter hurdles, gold medal. Congratulations to her. That was quite an event. USA men over Nikola Jokic and Serbia in hoops. In the semifinals, they advanced to the finals. 54 in Englewood, 53 in Louisville, and 58 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Has Wikipedia been co-opted by the regime? An article in Pirate Wires thinks so. The controversy happening within Wikipedia right now between editors and kind of chief owners and managers of the site are ultimately about who's going to control the site containing all the world's knowledge and hundreds of millions of dollars in Wikipedia funding. So Wikipedia, if you're not familiar with it, you live in a cave, but I'll explain it to you. Basically, it's the world's encyclopedia, right? And it's open sourced, which means anybody could edit it, become an editor, update information on it. And it was this kind of great triumph of the power of the internet when it first started. But what makes it so powerful is it's been prioritized by search engines like Google to provide top level results. So, you know this, if you Google anybody, a movie star, a politician, a random fact, oftentimes at the very top of the search bar there is Wikipedia. Well, things aren't going so well because there's been a growing debate and divide between the editors, these open source editors that provide updates, some of them editing 200,000 articles. This is just their thing. They love it. It's kind of a hobby for them. And the paid nonprofit organization that's actually managing Wikipedia. Would the site's community of decentralized, uncompensated editors continue to govern it according to its principles of openness, transparency, and neutrality, or would a handful of highly paid NGO technocrats reorient Wikipedia towards endorsing and promoting the ever-shifting currents of the Western elite social justice regime? And how would Wikipedia respond to a revolution in American political life that challenged the idea that knowledge should be both neutral and objective as a vestige of white supremacy? Right? So there's a lot packed in there. Now, if you visited Wikipedia anytime in the last decade, you remember oftentimes throughout the year, you'll see this little banner at the top that asks you to donate because it needed money for its servers. It needed money for its basic staff. So it would generally do that. But in the last few years, it decided rather than having to do these kind of annual fundraising campaigns, think K-Love or something like that, they would build a big foundation, put a lot of money into it, and therefore Wikipedia could be funded in perpetuity. That became known as the Wikimedia Foundation. Now, what ended up happening was the people that put the money into this tended to be pretty progressive. And so the fund that now Wikipedia relies upon primarily came from major leftist donors, including Google itself, to be able to continue to operate Wikipedia and keep it going. Now, what they're finding is that because they write the checks, they're now seeking to provide the control of Wikipedia and actually fire editors that they disagree with, adjust and come up with their own projects that reflect a progressive ideology. And Wikipedia itself is starting to highlight and showcase a leftist worldview. They've looked at and done sentiment analysis on how the articles are written about U.S. presidents, about U.S. senators, and U.S. governors. And in the sentiment analysis, they're finding that progressives are written about a lot more favorably than conservatives are. So you have now control, you have messaging, and you have agenda all being driven through Wikipedia in order to drive a leftist social agenda. You combine that with Google, which is already very progressive, and the fact that Google promotes Wikipedia, and the internet itself is being driven not in an open, not in a fair type of way, but as a tool to promote and drive aggressive leftist agendas and politicians. Fascinating article, piratewires.com. I'll link to this. But Billy, you hear this happening. Is it shocking?
No, not at all. And this is the fun part about the Jeff and Bill show, is the perception filters that we go through. And what I hear in that story, where you're seeing the nefarious libs come in and take over, what I'm seeing is the nefarious capitalism coming in and taking over. And again, I'm a huge fan of capitalism, but for me, this is about money. Money, because of the highly paid liberal people that want to get access and come into the board. If they were really just about, let's do all the liberal stuff and we're going to change the Wikipedia. Yes. Like they're Darth Sidious in Star Wars. Basically, they do it for free as well. The fact that they're coming in to make money off of it, they figured out they can make money. And Google's an excellent example, because Google reached a point where they're like, people pay us for the ads? Okay, then we put ads at the top of all the search. Even though that was exactly the antithesis of what they were trying to do. That is 180 degrees away from why the site was created and what the founders wanted to do. But now when you're in there, it is all about those top 5 or 6 things that are all advertisements. So you got to scroll halfway down the page to even find anything relevant. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent here just for a sec. We'll do it in a second, but it's more about how Google's algorithm has changed. I'm saying not fundamentally the search results, but how the search engine optimization game is played. And that's what I see in Wikipedia. They're playing to the search engine optimization game in order to make sure their results and everything are up near the top line. And yes, that is nefarious. And yes, are they manipulating it? Yes. And they're doing it because of the monies. Yeah, that's my opinion.
So to your point, Google now, this is important to know, and it's only really kind of a footnote in this long article.
Yeah.
Now, but it's really important, now has access to all of Wikipedia's data.
I'm sure that's going to go well.
User data.
Yeah, that's going to
so
be
that
great.
thing that you Googled and looked up kind of randomly on Wikipedia, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Is now going to follow you around via Google's data. So, so you have that data collection, but it's important to point out, though, Bill, there is an agenda here, and and yes, money is a portion of that agenda, but donations that are coming in, particularly from places like Google and others, are now fueling social justice advocacy and activism across the country. But this is the article. But for the Wikimedia Foundation, they're also just one part of a larger picture of change. Pursuing its new global vision, the Wikimedia Foundation is now aggressively lobbying the UN to ensure it can influence the global body's upcoming Global Digital Compact, a set of guidelines that seeks to regulate the internet the way the UN's 2000 Global Compact sought successfully to regulate world of business through what would become known as ESG and DEI. So what are they saying there? That there's an effort at the United Nations to create this global digital compact. And if you remember ESG and DEI, it was the idea that you're going to get scored. You're going to get ranked based upon how committed your business was to a set of DEI and ESG initiatives, including LGBTQ, climate change, racial diversity, stuff like that. And that ranking score determined, in some ways, your ability to get loans from banks, to be able to do business. So they were ranking you based upon leftist progressive agendas, then directly affecting your business. They want to copy that model, now put it on the internet. So if your website is more favorable towards LGBTQ or climate change or racial diversity, you'll be better ranked. If you're critical of that, you'll be lower ranked. This is a concerted, aggressive leftist agenda to control the messaging that people engage in throughout the internet.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
This is really big consequences.
When they become a company that's looking for profit, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they decide what they want to do and then try to affect change? That's sort of what we have been asking large corporations to do quite a lot. I understand the idea that because of the ideology that this is a big issue, but for me, this is the natural progression of the growth of a company. Eventually, the company, if it grows to a certain level, will say, well, now we're big enough and we are going to control this and whatever this is. Amazon got so big, they're controlling, small businesses and some distribution. Walmart did the same thing. Google did the same thing based on search. And I talked about it a minute ago. I don't know how many of our listeners go through Google and look for recipes. Hey, I've got to do this tonight. I've got something in the fridge. I'm looking for a recipe. If you go through those recipe websites, it's like, hey, here's the best way to make pork chops on the grill. Here's the best way to make chicken Alfredo when you don't have all the ingredients, all those things. If you look at those articles, they're written the same. The layout is exactly the same. It always starts with a little paragraph about, hi, here's the little story about what I'm going to tell you. This is the most wonderfulest thing in the world and why I'm giving it to you. And then we have a little bit of a story about some of the ingredients and choosing the ingredients and some other stuff. Then we get an additional story about some preparation stuff. And then finally we get to the recipe. That's what the Google algorithm wants. So that's what the content creators are feeding it. That's what the people that do the SEO are feeding it. And people have tried to create other search engines out there and they just don't simply compete. For me, I understand what Wikipedia is doing. They're getting too large. They're going to take on some activism roles. I disagree with it and we'll probably end up using it much less because of that and also not trusting the results. But if we are going to talk about capitalism, somebody needs to create competition. If we are going to say that we need, if we want to say that someone comes in there and needs to put a finger or balance out what's going on with Wikipedia, be careful, because at that point, I feel like you're advocating for socialism. You're advocating for some larger organization to make sure that it's balanced evenly.
Or is it the idea that you're dealing oftentimes with the public square? So I'm going to go back to the phones.
Yeah.
Not our phones, but the idea of AT&T, Bell, all them, that they had to become neutral platforms. You couldn't, as a phone company, even though you were a private company, say, if you're going to talk about this issue, we're going to limit your ability to talk about it. You don't have the freedom to do that. Same thing with UPS or FedEx, that if at a certain point you become a public service that has to remain neutral. FedEx can't just say, well, if you're going to send out flyers or Kinkos that disagrees, I'm not dealing with like criminal activity, but because we have an agenda and we don't like your agenda, we're going to now limit you. Google, Wikipedia, I would even argue Facebook serve as general public platforms that need to remain neutral. You don't have the ability, because so many people use you, because you are a tool for the spread of information in a free and fair society. You don't have the ability to put your thumb on the scale like they did restricting posts and things like that and say, we're not going to allow this information out. Now, I'm not dealing with criminal stuff. But when Wikipedia all of a sudden says DEI, ESG, and the progressive worldview is so important that we're now going to skew articles in that direction, we're going to limit editors who try to balance things out, because we now have an agenda to push. It's one, really important for the American people to know that you're dealing with somebody who has a worldview and agenda that they're pushing. But two, you're a neutral arbiter of information. You need to remain neutral. And if all of your articles about Republican senators, for instance, skew more negatively than the Democrat senators, that's not fair. You're not being a neutral arbiter of information. And yeah, you can say just, well, go create another one, that type of thing. But we didn't allow that to happen with the phone companies. We said you had to remain neutral. You were a neutral organization. You couldn't put your thumb on the scale and restrict, for instance, phone calls between Republican organizations.
But what we did do is we did break up a phone monopoly because of lack of competition.
Yeah, I'm
because
okay
of that.
breaking up these monopolies.
But it was because that was the only point of access. Unfortunately, Google is not the only point of access to search nor the internet. Wikipedia is not the only point of access for that information. And you're right that Wikipedia should be neutral. But I don't see any mechanism or any reason to say if they decided to become very conservative or very liberal, that they shouldn't be allowed to do that because there are other opportunities available. I understand the idea if it is a functional monopoly per se, and Google and Alphabet, there can be an argument made there that there should be some divestiture and there should be some breakups of what's going on in Google because of the amount of the marketplace that they control. As an argument against Walmart at the time, and also an argument against Amazon in the current purchasing landscape. But, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, and this is why I listen to the show, I don't like the idea of the government coming in here and trying to maintain neutrality for this type of a platform because other alternatives are available. If it is the only choice, then I think we've got an argument. But if it's not, I don't want the government telling a business that it can't do this or that. If they want to go super lib, they should be allowed to go super lib. If they want to be super conservative, they should be allowed to go super conservative. We can see the changes that Elon Musk has made inside of X. We wouldn't want the government coming in there and telling them, but we wouldn't want the government coming in there and going, ooh, Elon, you're being a little too right wing right now. We're going to have to do this and constrain your ability to do this on your platform.
But is he being right wing or is he allowing free speech? Because I'm not sure he's putting the thumb on the scale saying progressive accounts are going to be shadow banned and you're not going to be able to, promote your information. But Billy, I think the flaw in the reasoning there is that these companies are just big by their own nature and because they're successful. In some cases, and I used to run a digital advertising agency, so I kind of knew this. These companies are vicious in squelching any type of competition. So look at Zuckerberg, for instance, if you're Facebook, any effort to try to create anything close to the code of Facebook was so viciously sued into the ground by their lawyers that you didn't have, and you can't compete. You just can't compete. They're a 500-pound gorilla in the room with everybody else. So you don't have a free market. You have distortion that takes place simply by the nature of their vicious business tactics. So that's where I go, all right, well, maybe if everybody that created something close to it was allowed to freely operate, you could have a competition. But when Google's got over 90% of the search business taking place right now, there's no way to freely compete against them.
I understand that. But the problem with that is then we have to set a threshold level and say, okay, once you reach this level of market saturation, now the government steps in and now we get to put extra regulations on you and change your business model. So the idea of when you become too successful, the government now is going to punish you and take over your self-direction. And I mean, Facebook's a great example because look at Zuckerberg. Outside of the original Facebook platform, he's created Bupkis. All of the innovation,
I know,
all of the advancements,
meta stuff,
and all the innovations that have been successful, he's purchased. All the stuff that he's done himself post Facebook has been a train wreck. The only reason Facebook is remaining dominant is because they purchased their competition. And Google, Alphabet has been doing the same thing. But that's the marketplace that we have. And so I understand what you're saying, but what you're also advocating for is once you get to a certain level of success, government steps in and they get to take control. I'm not sure I can get on board with that.
Give us a call. Tell us what you think. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Let's go to the phones here. I know Dwayne's been waiting very patiently. Dwayne, Divide, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. The Wikipedia thing, just three things. The number 19 song, That was the average age of a soldier dying in Vietnam.
Yep.
So people were
Really?
dancing in clubs to that. Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
2, I checked up on that doctor with the 38 cases, the cardiologist, and I looked up on Wikipedia, and they were very simply saying that it was a pattern of abuse that he was doing. And thirdly, one about Taylor Swift using one of her jets from her Eras tour, dropping A9 Ninja missiles on all the bad guys that were going after her. And if you don't know what an A9 Ninja missile is, look it up. It's really kind of cool that we have that kind of technology.
And you know, Dwayne, that missile would be covered in glitter. It would be a fabulous missile.
Well, it would have to be for these people because when you see what it does, I'm very happy to be an American right now. Okay. And I had to do it the hard way. The fact that it's going to sit there and change, it ebbs and flows. People won't use it. They'll start figuring out why it's not being used, and they'll change the patterns. They'll see what they can do. Google is one of the things that says do no harm. And yet look what they do on a daily basis. They transfer and trample and everything else. The market is what the market is. Do I see major problems? Not really. But it's Wikipedia. Again, some idiot just 30 minutes ago sat there and wrote on the Taylor Swift that her jet will be dropping A9 Hellfire Ninja missiles on her people that are bothering her. And if that's allowed to be done, then really, can you really trust anything that's on that to begin with?
Well, and Dwayne, to your point, this is why I think nobody trusts the media anymore, because you this thing was supposed to be a collection of the world's information, factual, data oriented, and now it's been showcased to be taken over by the radical left to drive a progressive ideology, and people wonder why there's literally no trust in institutions anymore.
When I taught English as a second language, and there was always the same question they would ask about the government. All the classes, everybody inside the class will ask 1 or 17 questions about what can they do to you. And I said at the time, nothing. This is a free speech with restrictions, of course, of what you can say. But they all said, back where we were, we had to watch everything of what we said, what we wrote. And when I was overseas, I saw how the government sat there and did things. Has it creeped up to this level? Yes. Will we let it continue? As Peter said one time, maybe we need to see how bad it gets so we can right the ship and bring it home.
Yeah, Dwayne, I think you're exactly right, man. I sure appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Dwayne from Divide, his line will be open 303-696-1971. Hey, I want to tell you about my friend Dan Kaplis and his firm, Dan Kaplis Law. Dan is with us. As you've known, I've known him for well over a decade. He's pro-life. He's pro-family. He's pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. You show up with one of those bus promotion attorneys or billboard attorneys or ambulance chasing attorneys. It's going to send a message to everyone involved in the case. Look, Dan Kaplis was the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, this guy is a real winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted, he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. But he's not just reserved for the rich and wealthy. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll continue with this conversation. Do you trust Wikipedia? Do you trust Google? Are they just progressive outlets controlling the world's information? And is that just a thing to shrug off and say, well, we can build an alternative one? Or do we need to take it much more seriously, fight it, and say, if you're going to be the arbiter of the world's information, you have to do it in an honest, factual way? Give me a call. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Oh, you know, Jeff, it's nice when you're doing a morning radio show and you know that friends and family are out there listening. It's rather depressing when one of your children who's headed to work texts you about something funny on a different radio show this morning. Not listening to Dad, taking it personally. Seriously, when I get the text, I'm like, am I supposed to respond to this? Like, that was really funny listening to.
That's funny.
Hang on. I'm like, what? I think somebody's getting a few less Christmas presents this year. I'm just saying. I'm not going to out them right now, but I'm hurt. I probably deserve it, though.
This is going to be a fun conversation at the dinner table tonight.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, and next time we go out to eat, or if I go and pick something up from one of the burger places, I'm like, I have no idea what happened to half your fries. No clue. And I'm not hungry anymore. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, Pirate Wires has got an article about how the regime has now captured Wikipedia, and it came through their funding resources. They write, it's now flush with money. Wikipedia was. They used to have these like little lines up there that ask you to donate. Please donate $5 to keep Wikipedia going. Well, the left came in and essentially just bought it. It's flush with money, has positioned itself at the very center of global governance, the epitome of top-down centralization. But the shiny new outlook on controlling who gets to create, spread, own, and even define information is a fundamental philosophical shift from the decentralized vision set out by Wikipedia at its birth as not an entity, but a process for creating knowledge accessible to all and owned by none, writes Ashley Rinsberg in Pirate Wires. It's now owned. It's now essentially owned by a progressive worldview that's going to shape a vast majority of how the world gets its information. Is that a problem to you?
They need money.
And look, I'm getting text messages here that are like, well, if conservatives owned it, it'd just be conservative news. I don't think that's the case. Generally, a libertarian conservative bought Twitter. And if I'm wrong, correct me on this, but I don't hear the left going, we're now shadow banned. Our worldview is restricted. We can't speak freely, that type of thing. I don't hear that out there. Maybe it's happening, but I don't hear it. I think when conservatives buy free speech platforms, they keep things free speech. I think when the left gets control, they centralize and squash and control what people speak, hear, and read. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Am I wrong on that?
Well, the only thing that I think is I understand the idea of platforms, but I disagree with you on the idea that conservatives want free speech and don't want to control what people see, hear, and read. Things about protests against certain music performers, things about taking books out of libraries, both public libraries and school libraries.
But it's not oriented towards kids, though.
Well, hang on, though. But the issue
isn't the reasoning on that kids.
Oh, I understand,
but shouldn't be seeing stuff that's
but
driven by a harmful agenda.
But the question again is who decides, and who decides what the harmful agenda is. And that's the issue. Is what I'm hearing is we're just mad about who's making these decisions, not the decision being made. We're just mad about the decision makers, and that's kind of the issue. And it's just like recently, I believe it was the governor, and I don't remember what state it is putting the 10 Commandments up in the classroom. He said, "Well, if you don't want to see it, have your kids not look at it." Okay. But couldn't I just simply use the same argument about the books they're taking out of school libraries? If you don't want to see it, don't look at it. I mean, that's some of the same reasoning behind what he's saying. It's flippant and it's incorrect, but it's flippant. It's the same thing. And I understand the idea of the shadow ban. However, if we dig into many of the cases, not all, but many of the cases of people saying they're shadow banned, it's because they were trafficking in things that weren't true. And there should be some guardrails on truth and factual nature of things on those platforms.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I don't think that the platform should be a fountain for things that are completely and totally untrue. I would disagree with Wikipedia allowing a page that talks about you and I having some sort of weird pagan ritual in the woods and why we're sacrificing dogs to some sort of weird god. That would be wrong. But I wouldn't allow that on there. That would be factually incorrect. There should be some guardrails.
But Bill,
about
it was proven all throughout COVID that what they were censoring was not factually incorrect, but was actually driven by political narratives and agendas.
What are the examples?
In order to control things.
Talk to me about the examples of that.
Where did COVID come from? Where did COVID come from?
It was never disputed about it coming from China.
as it came out of there.
Oh my gosh.
What?
It was totally disputed. It was absolutely disputed.
Not out of China. The issue is the Wuhan lab leak theory and the wet market theory. That was the thing. And the censorship around the Wuhan lab leak had to do with it being a plot to bring down Donald Trump in America. That's where the censorship ended.
Didn't.
That's where it crested over.
You look at ivermectin, you look at the efforts on masks, on the effectiveness of the vaccine,
but
all of that stuff was squashed throughout COVID.
But ivermectin has not been proven to be a good treatment. That's not. And that's the problem, is many of these things were people recommending treatments in which the application of which was dangerous or could kill you, and things that were recommended that don't help you in any way, shape, or form. I mean, so there is some advertising and there is some responsibility to these platforms. If someone comes out and says, "Hey, I have got this. It's this goop that I made in the back of my garage, and if you put it on your face in the morning, it repels all the COVID. The COVID can't get to your face, but you got to wear this goop on your face all day." It doesn't work. We wouldn't sit there and say, "Well, obviously, we've got to just let everybody decide." No, we don't. No, not in the least. So the claims that were being made about ivermectin and other things were not based in reality. There are some marginal treatments that were available, but it had to do with opening up airwaves as far as breathing. It didn't prevent you from contracting the disease, nor did it help you fight the disease once you got it. But that was the issue. That was the things that people were given. And that's what they were being told. That's an issue.
The internet works best when you have people that are able to push free information out there. The left constantly steps in to restrict people, really only from the right, based upon political agendas. Now you have the largest Google search information and Wikipedia information, which is supposed to be factual and decentralized, now completely controlled by the left, pushing their information, their agenda. I give you plenty of examples of how they do this. This is a problem for our society. It should be called out, and you can't just build an alternative because they use aggressive business practices in order to squelch any opportunity. This is about top-down, controlled, centralized information against free people, and it should be condemned. All right, we're just Billy and I could keep going on this.
Could.
Oh my goodness, we're way out of time. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Look at that clock. Damn it, time.
Jeff and Bill show. Is Wikipedia compromised? Man, Billy and I had an interesting conversation about that. I don't think, Bill, you disagree with the idea that it's gone to a leftist kind of perspective. You just say, go ahead, conservatives, recreate your own, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Repeat that. I was having a conversation with Joe, my friend, off the air.
Oh, well, I was just thinking you're not disagreeing that it's skewing in a more progressive way, and now it's kind of owned and operated by progressives. But your response is conservatives go create your own.
Yeah, it kind of is in that point. I don't like the top down type of thing. And I was just chatting off the air. Joe from Arvada, friend of the show, appreciate the phone call, said he had a great example of how there's some tacit bending of the truth inside of the media. And he pointed out something that I was incorrect about based on some assumptions because of the things that I read in the media. And he's right about it. And it's something that I knew, but I had forgotten. And he's 110% about how the media had been covering it. And it's Maduro in Venezuela and the election.
Yeah,
and he's
right.
talking about it, that because they talk about him being a dictator, the assumption is that he is on the fascist side, the right-hand side. He's actually left. He's on the socialist side. And I had recently on the air described him as being far right as far as a dictator. And Joe accurately pointed out that I was incorrect. So I will correct myself right now on the air. And Joe is right that because of, and what it really shined even to me is I knew this, but because of the tone and tenor of the media coverage, I forgot, because he wasn't held up all the time. It didn't reinforce the idea of being a socialist dictator. That is correct. But when the media showed him as being a dictator and very controlling, the assumption then becomes right, because that's where you see more of it in some places being concerned, and that's how it was colored. And he's exactly right. And that is a great example of media coverage being tilted in one way to get you to come to a conclusion. And even I fell for it. Yeah, I forgot about it. And he's right. Yeah, and that's a great point.
Got a text message here. So who now owns Wikipedia? Well, they set up a thing called the Wikimedia Endowment and the Wikimedia Foundation, which is managed by the Tides Foundation, an $800 million fund that is part of the wider Tide Center. So they are accelerating social justice is their mission there, and they now manage it. But we'll continue this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado, on this Friday, August 9th, 2024. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center as we gear up for a whole nother morning. And especially the next few hours are going to be wild with engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, Tulsi Gabbard's going to join us. She found herself on an interesting list. Now, Billy, I thought she was on the vice presidential shortlist.
I thought so too.
This is not the list I was talking about.
No, not that list.
This is a very different list.
Probably a list that maybe one of the people on the show might appear on at some point in their lifetimes. And we'll let the audience decide who it will be.
So Tulsi was put on the TSA watch list the day after she made comments against Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and kind of the growing national security state. So way to prove her point. And then we're going to ask her what that was like and what she plans to do about it. This all comes as a result of a whistleblower within the Federal Air Marshal's division showcasing a picture of her as a terrorist watch list member. So we'll cover that in the 9 o'clock hour. You're not going to miss that. We're going to get to this story in just a second. Great Wall Street Journal article. They are now saving babies pretty regularly as young as 22 weeks gestation. Now, this is a little personal to me because my daughter was born at 27 weeks, and she was probably the size of a 25-week-old child because my wife had preeclampsia at the time. But we went through the whole NICU experience. 94 days in the NICU, the whole effort to save her life, all this stuff. And they've now got the technology down to 22 weeks. But not a lot of people know about this, and not a lot of hospitals provide this service. So this is going to be a very important conversation you can probably share with somebody in your life if they ever face a situation where they go into preterm labor or preeclampsia or the baby's coming early. But we are, in this country, are saving babies regularly as young as 22 weeks gestation, which is just amazing. So we'll cover this and a lot more, but let's start first with the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Yeah, that's a great story. Good morning, Billy. 59 and cloudy, expecting a high of 75 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
I think that our country is right now in the most dangerous position.
Great. That's just great. Okay, let me clear it out here. But
yeah,
Trump,
it seems like the Daleks from Doctor Who seem to take over your
is that what it
there.
is?
I think it would sounds like that.
Wait
Sounds like he's about
Daleks?
to exterminate. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, but wait, what is Daleks?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, is that a character? Or?
It's an entire species. It's a race. Yeah, I'm feeling very nerd right now.
So it's a race on there.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
It's a race of
wow.
Yeah.
So those are the ones with like 3 fingers.
No, it's the one. It's the one that looks like a movable trash can that wants to kill everybody. It's again for a character inside of Doctor Who. It's one of the best characters. And there's a reason for it, and I could go way too far down the rabbit hole as far as how important they are and who started the Daleks and everything else. But that they speak with that kind of a fuzzy voice. They speak with a very electronic fuzzy voice, like you had Trump there. So it sounded like Trump taking over the Daleks. Yeah, if you saw him, you would. Yeah. So okay,
that's you are the man. You just killed two birds with one stone.
Just an idiot.
Again. You're the man. Thanks, Billy. Back to Trump.
I think that our country is right now in the most dangerous position it's ever been in, from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint, in the form of other countries that are frankly very powerful. They're very powerful countries, and we don't know what we're doing. We have leadership that has no clue.
The former president had a press conference last night. Today he's in Montana, and then he will fly south to Aspen. It'll be the first time he'll be in Colorado in 4 years. The debate on ABC is September 10th. That has been confirmed. And Trump knows that the open southern border is one of the biggest issues, and it has left our nation more dangerous.
She hasn't done an interview. She can't do an interview. She's barely competent, and she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight. Why is it that millions of people were allowed to come into our country from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions, insane asylums, even insane asylums? It's a mental institution on steroids. That's what it is. When you see the people that are coming into these are institutions that are being emptied out, not in South America, all over the world, including South America, all over the world. Prisons are being emptied out into our country.
Meanwhile, Kamala Khan responded to a little question on the tarmac next to Air Force Two about the debate, about 60 seconds. But this is day 19 days since she has had a press conference, answered questions from reporters, and, a little honesty and clarity there. Hasn't happened in a long time. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signing a new order requiring hospitals to collect and report medical patients' immigration status. Texas Democratic Representative Sylvia Garcia condemned the move, accusing Abbott of trying to make ICE officers out of doctors. He's just trying to do whatever he can for the people of Texas. Microsoft says hackers based in Iran have been trying to break in to the account of a high-ranking official on the U.S. presidential campaign. They were discovered in June. All right, to me, this is a huge story. The left wants Steven Crowder gone. He's taken off of YouTube again, even though YouTube is full of disgusting content, further than the eye can see. Google and YouTube, they hate free speech and stuff they don't agree with. Crowder raising awareness about monopolies over major ad budgets. Elon and X have filed suit against the ad mafia as well, and Crowder is fighting back.
We're back to ABC, NBC, CBS. Back in the day where there are only 3 networks, there are only a handful of companies that monopolize most of the space, and another handful of companies who monopolize the advertising space that allows them to exist. And they've decided that your viewpoint, that of half the country, American exceptionalism, First Amendment, Second Amendment, God, faith, family, that's not allowed on the big boy networks, which are now YouTube and Google. But they've gone a step further and they've said, you know what? We want to take everything else. Nope, no Rumble, no alternative. Even though you're not dependent upon us as advertisers, we don't like that. We know you're independent. You've got Mug Club. No. We want to make it so that you can't broadcast at all. These are mob tactics.
They're radical leftist communists. So another example of election interference right before our eyes during election year and during the campaign. Anyone living near the wildfire in Larimer County is urged to buy flood insurance right away. Monsoon season has increased the risk of flash floods. It happens after flames burn through the vegetation that would normally absorb the rainfall and runoff. And one of my favorite golfers of all time has died. Chichi Rodriguez came from a poor family in Puerto Rico and emerged as a Hall of Famer, 8 titles on tour and another 22 on the senior tour. He was 88 and a showman.
You got to be different. You got to be yourself in the world. And that's what I always wanted to be.
I interviewed him 2 or 3 times and just incredible. Braves in town tonight. Rocks lost to the Mets last night. Broncos at the Colts this weekend. It's preseason football. And, this was exciting last night.
Nobody has ever won 2 gold medals in this event, let alone back-to-back. Sydney
McLaughlin Barone, a world record in the women's 400-meter hurdles. She earned the gold medal. And in hoops, USA men over Nikola Jokic and Serbia in the semifinals. 58 in Englewood, 53 in Louisville, 58 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Saw a great story in the Wall Street Journal, and this is really, really important because there's lives at stake here. Doctors can now save very premature babies. Most hospitals don't try. Babies born at 22 weeks into pregnancy have increasingly better odds of survival, but parents often don't know what's possible. Medical advances over the past several decades have given hospitals the ability to save younger and younger premature newborns, yet most hospitals don't try, and parents often aren't aware of what's possible or that other hospitals, even just a few miles away, might offer their newborns a fighting chance. Doctors are now capable of saving the lives of babies born at 22 weeks gestation, and in rare cases, even a week earlier with improved techniques to help tiny lungs develop and protect fragile skin and organs. Hospitals with extensive experience resuscitating extremely premature babies report survival rates as high as 67% for babies born at 22 weeks. The reason this is really personal for me, and I wanted to make sure we took time to talk about this, was my daughter was born at 27 weeks gestation. And because my wife had preeclampsia, which is a medical condition where your organs start to shut down, it's like your body doesn't really know what to do with pregnancy. And so it kind of panics and starts to shut down some of your organs. And in my wife's case, her kidneys were shutting down. That's when we knew there was a problem. And she was displacing water into her skin. So she kind of puffed up like a marshmallow man from Ghostbusters all of a sudden. And then we took her into the hospital, and the doctor said, you have preeclampsia. We need to urgently deliver the baby, and we need to do it right away. And I was like 25 or 26 years old at the time. Didn't know anything about this, right? We figured we had 3 more months to get ready for the delivery of a child. We hadn't even picked a name out. We hadn't done any of the things to get the house ready to have a child or any of that stuff. This is our very first child, my very first time being a father, and they're rushing my wife off to save her life and to hopefully save the baby. Now, we were fortunate enough to be around real pros, and this was an amazing operation that I can only describe as being one of the most technically efficient, professional operations I've ever seen in my life, right? So imagine me 25, 26 years old. They're rushing my wife off. I get about 2 minutes before they're going to bring me into the operating room. And I'm in this empty hospital room. I don't know what's going to happen. I've never had a child. I don't know what to expect here. I'm completely overwhelmed. And I just fell on my knees and I begged God to take my life instead of my wife or my daughter. And it was one of the most honest conversations you have with God, right? So we go into the operating room. They're working on my wife. My wife's having complications because the water displacement that's taking place, the medicine that's to numb her is not getting to her. So as they're cutting, she can feel it as they're trying to get to our daughter and save both their lives. So they end up having to put her out under general anesthesia in order to stop the pain that she's experiencing. So I want to describe to you what it was like in that room. They had one nurse that had wrapped towels around both of her arms. So she kind of had towels in between and kind of created a bridge of towels in her arms. And the doctor's feverishly working very, very quickly to get my daughter out of my wife. And the minute they get her out, you hear the cry, right? It's a cry that you'll never forget as a parent. It's one of the most beautiful sounds ever. They get her out. She's the size of my hand. She weighed 1 pound, 9 ounces. She was essentially the size of a Coke can, a soda can. And they put her in this towel and wrapped her up, whisked her away. I mean, they never even saw her. Whisked her away, and they immediately went into work saving her life. They put intubation into her so that they could force her lungs to breathe. Her lungs, she still had 3 more months of growing in the womb. Her lungs weren't ready for that at all. They had to keep her warm because her skin was so thin. It looked like paper, like a translucent, almost kind of paper. And so they had to wrap her up, keep her warm, get her breathing. And we went back and saw her eventually a little bit later. But that began for us a wild journey of dealing with health complications, threats. We got to meet other families in those situations. At one point, we had to transfer her into a separate hospital via an ambulance ride. It was a wild journey that lasted 94 days. Today, my daughter's 15 years old, perfectly healthy, no problems whatsoever. But this article brings up a lot of important things that I want to cover here real quick.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, just
number
before you do
one.
that, okay, I'll let you do that real quick.
Please.
But then after you do the things you want to cover, I want to share part of a story that I think our listeners may be interested in. And it will outline how in so many ways you and I are like yin and yang as we come at these stories totally different and look at it, because I have a similar yet 180 degree difference. There's some commonalities that you talked about there, and I'll share the story in a second, but please continue.
Yeah. So, and Billy, you and I are both dads and have had to deal with these complications. That's one thing I really appreciate about you. So one is we're at a point now in this society where about every 10 years, they're able to get a week earlier in keeping these babies alive. When we were about 15 years ago, 24 weeks was about the lowest they would go in gestation before they would, at a certain point, they wouldn't even help the baby. It was born too early. They would essentially just wrap it up and to try to keep it warm, and then let it die. And this news article gets into experiences that people faced where that was the case. I mean, think about Jackie Kennedy. She gave birth to a baby at 34 weeks gestation.
Yeah.
So, almost 2 months more than my child. And all they did for her was keep it warm and let it die. That used to be what they did. Now they have these incredibly technically advanced professional teams that will save these babies' lives. But what the article gets to is that nobody really knows where these hospitals are. There's not really a list of them. And two, sometimes they're right next door to each other. So you will go into a hospital, and they get into experiences in this article where the woman went into labor at like 24 weeks, and they just kept the baby warm and let it die, when next door they would have implemented the entire operation to try to save the baby's life. And because this isn't centralized or organized, parents don't know. And if you're like me, 25, 26 years old, you don't know any of this stuff. You don't think about this stuff. In some cases, you're just rushing to the hospital to see if your spouse is okay. And now all of a sudden you're having to make decisions about end-of-life care or saving the baby or any of that stuff. And it's not that well organized. So that's something that I think is really important to educate our audience on, is that you can save the lives of these children. You got to get to the right hospitals. And Billy, while you're sharing your story, I'm going to see if we can pull up a list of Colorado hospitals. So
good. Excellent. Yeah. So as Jeff was going through the idea of the NICU and everything else and what went on with his daughter, who I've met, and she's a lovely young woman and fantastic. And I'm so grateful for the journey that he went through and came out on the other end, because I had a similar journey, but it changes about 180 degrees. In my case, it was third term, well, not mine, my wife's third term gestational diabetes, where our son blew up really, really big. He started gaining weight really, really fast, and they misjudged how large he was. He was like 3 to 4 weeks larger as far as gestational age than what should be based on the timeline. And when your wife is about 5'2", it becomes very difficult to get a baby that large out of the birth canal. He got trapped in the birth canal. I'll get a little emotional here, but Long story short, he came out, because it's a really hard, difficult story based on his birth. He came out with 0 APGAR scores. When Jeff talks about that first cry of life, I didn't get to hear it. It wasn't there. And they came to me, this is a tough one, and said that I was going to lose my baby. They came and said I was going to lose my wife. And when he talks about the medical professionals that rushed in and saved the life of the baby, I experienced that just as he did. And where medical care is now is vastly different. What my son went through doesn't have to be the case now because of the advantages that we have. Oh, this is a tough one. Hope you're enjoying this journey with me this morning, because I haven't relived this in a while. It was 6 weeks in the NICU, not knowing if your baby's going to walk or talk. And that's hard for a parent. And what Jeff went through and his wife went through, the potentiality of losing that child, and where we are now, Jeff's right that it is in some ways offensive, in some ways very, I'd say almost bordering on criminal, that we don't let parents know the medical treatment that is available for their children. I think it is a dereliction of duty when a hospital does not tell a mother or a family in distress that there is another facility that can help them. That's what they should be doing. And the part that hurts me the most is many times we're making these decisions based on money. That hospital didn't invest in the care because it was too expensive. They don't invest in the staff because it's too expensive. And that's it. And sometimes, even in the article, Jeff, and this hurt me the most, is that the hospitals were making the choice based on the patient not having the ability to pay as well. That's hard, that we are making these choices on our babies' lives that can be saved based on amount of money. If it was today, what my son went through would bankrupt my family because of how things have changed in medical care and insurance. We would not be able to have afforded to keep my son alive based on how we've changed insurance coverage. We would have had to make a choice on whether or not he would die. We would not be able to get the services that he needed because of that. And it angers me that we make that choice based on money. And it angers me that people in the healthcare industry wouldn't turn to this family and say, over here, they have another option. Maybe this group can help you. Because even though hospitals are competing against one another, you all took the same Hippocratic oath. You all have the same goal. You all graduated with that same goal.
Well, Bill, I'm really glad you shared that show. And that's one of the things I love about you is your heart as a father. And it just comes right through when you talk about your son and the experience that you all had and your love for your wife. Man, I sure appreciate you being that honest.
It's hard.
I want to give.
I think it's dusty in the
folks,
studio too. Got to tell you, I'm very dusty in here. It's not, my eyes aren't blinking. It's just dusty. Just telling you, it's just dusty.
Getting lots of text messages, heartwarming stories, loves and hugs to both of you. Thanks so much, Suzanne. So I want to give some people some practical stuff here. There are different levels of what are called NICUs. NICUs are neonatal intensive care units. These are the operations that take care of babies. And in some cases, these are incredible operations. So there's different levels of NICUs. There's 4 different levels. And the higher the number, the higher the level of the NICU. And that means you can get into like specific surgery wings for preemie babies, larger operations, that type of thing. So for instance, our daughter was born at a smaller level NICU. We had some concerns about the level of care that she was getting and transferred her. And the hospital was great to work with us to a higher level of NICU care where there were more nurses, more doctors, and just more of a focus on that particular hospital caring for premature babies. I want to pause for just a second and tell you there are absolute angels in this world, and they are NICU nurses. 100%.
Oh yeah.
I think they directly come from God. These are people that spend the time to care for your child because they're going to stay in the hospital. And to Billy's point, one of the hardest things to do is to leave your child in the hospital overnight.
Oh, it's awful.
And we have to do that for months and months and months. It's brutal. They almost become parents with you.
Yeah.
Of these little babies. We had some that were believers with us and would put Bible verses and crosses on our little babies' incubator because they live in little incubators while they're getting bigger. And they became really, really important to us. So those NICU nurses out there are gifts.
They are angels
directly from God.
A NICU nurse that watched over our oldest. She would draw signs. She would just sit there and say, okay, she would deal with the NICU babies for a while and kind of think like based on the name, personality, the family, she would create just 8 by 10 on a piece of paper, a little sign. And it was just art. We took it home. It's still hanging on his wall. We had coffee cups made from it. We still talk to the nurse. Yeah, they're angels. They're absolute angels. Great. Yeah.
So there's a few level 4 NICU hospitals in Colorado. One of them is Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children down off a high street in Denver. The other one's Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center. And then the other one is Rose Medical Center. So if you end up in a situation where you need a high quality NICU service, and look, you're going to be the best advocate for your child. This is something we had to learn the hard way too, is that while everybody is great and professional, they're not going to pay attention to the details as much as you will as a parent. It's just the way God made it. So you as a parent are going to notice things, and you need to be the best advocate for your child if something's going wrong. And if you have to transfer your child. But those are the 3 ones: Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children, Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center, or Rose Medical Center can get you to level 4 NICU treatments in the state of Colorado, which is important to know. So this technology will continue to improve. I think it'll get better and better. I'm so grateful we live in a country, and I don't want to get too much into this side, but it is bizarre to me in one capacity that we race to save children like this, and in another way, we just discard them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kept thinking about through the entire journey with my wife, Billy, or with my wife and my daughter through this, was they weren't saving one life. You know, you look at you look at those family trees where it's like grandma and grandpa, and then it just goes and goes and goes, and you end up with like huge families.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm going through with Taylor was the idea that we're not just saving one life, we're saving her children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and generations after generations of people, all because those doctors and nurses did God's work to save her life. And that gets me to this day.
And in many ways also saving your life and your wife's life, because how much damage that can do to you individually and as a couple by losing that child and having to go through it. That is incredibly hard to get over. We have neighbors, wonderful couple. They miscarried about 2 years ago. They had, and this was later in the pregnancy, they had the nursery already set up. That's how far along they were when things happened and things went bad. They have yet to get to a place where they feel like they want to try again. They're still strong in their marriage, still strong in their faith, but they're not ready. That's what it's done to them. At this point, they could be working on 2, maybe even looking at 3 if this didn't happen. But now everything has changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, Bill, thanks so much for sharing that perspective. I hope that our conversation today saves a life. That was the point of having this, was parents need to know, you need to be prepared, especially if you face that medical emergency. Look out there for opportunities to save your child. Go ahead.
Ask questions. Yes. Ask questions. Jeff's 110% right. There was a moment with our son where the doctor wanted to perform a surgery that was risky, because the doctor thought something was wrong. We're like, well, we want to ask a question. We asked some more questions, got another doctor involved in this. The doctor said, no. The last thing you do is put that child into surgery. He's going to have horrible complications. I've seen this before. This is actually what's going on. This is the problem. Do this and this. And if it changes things in his life signs, then we've got the right cause and we now can fix it. That guy was right. If we would have let the first doctor go ahead, it would have been a surgery that would have been horrible on my young son. And it also would not have fixed the problem. As a parent, ask questions. Don't fight with them. Ask questions. It's your right. It's your responsibility. Yeah.
That's right. Bill, that's great. Why don't you tell us about Balanced Wellspace?
Oh, yeah. And this is going to be a great transition. BalanceWellSpace.com. We talked about a lot of changes in your life and the changes that Jeff's life and my life went through when we had those children in our lives. Now, I'm talking about changes that I'm going through right now in my sleep, my pain. I know I'm a pain in the neck to some of our listeners, but you don't have to live with that pain. You can always change the radio, or you can visit my friends at Balance Wellspace. Check out balancewellspace.com. Balancewellspace.com. Last night, I experienced something incredible. Again, I slept on my right side without any sharp pain. I have a lot of things wrong with me. I have a broken shoulder. I have two vertebrae in my back that are starting to fuse from an older surgery. I have some dislocated things that shouldn't be dislocated. I've got some torn meniscuses. I've got some torn ligaments. It's a long list that we don't have time for right now, but Balance Wellspace is a one-stop shop that I'm working with, and they are fixing things that I thought I just was going to have to live with the rest of my life. I thought it was just part of getting old. Well, that hurts. It hurts when I walk down the stairs, and sometimes my knee is just going to give out. Well, I can't lay on that side in order to go to sleep. I'm going to toss and turn all night. It's not that way. Balance Wellspace is changing my life, and I want them to be able to change yours as well. You're suffering from neuropathy. What they can do is nothing short of remarkable. I talked to a couple of patients there, and they're moving better without the tingly sensations, without any of the side effects. They're doing fantastic. One lady that I was talking to said she feels like she's gotten her life back based on what she's done with Balance Wellspace. For me, I'm feeling the same way. Last night, slept on my right side. Yesterday, I was visiting one of the specialist there, B. She was doing some shockwave therapy. They're running some stuff to destroy some of the built up scar tissue in my right shoulder. And there's a lot of it. She found some that was sitting back behind my scapula. She got underneath it and you could feel the knot, a knot I had been feeling for 5 years. I thought that's just, I'm old. I'm just an old dude. That's what you got to live with. It's not. She loosened it up. It's gone. And now, oh my goodness, I didn't have the pain. I don't have the soreness. I fell asleep on my right side for hours last night and didn't experience the pain and suffering. There were times I'd wake up and I couldn't get back to sleep because the pain was so significant. It was disrupting my life. It was making my life worse. You don't have to live in pain like I was living in pain. BalanceWellspace.com. It's integrative medicine. Why is it different? Chiropractor, neuropathy, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injection, and so many more things all under one roof. The reason I like this team is it's a personal evaluation. They create a personal plan for you to get rid of your pain. It's reevaluated regularly. The team talks about you and your pain and changes things that need to be changed. It's also a one-stop shop. I go into Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking. Drop the car there underneath a shady tree, walk on up, go to the 3rd floor, and I see the entire team. And I go from office to office to office and get everything done in an hour. I got 4 things done yesterday, was out of there in an hour. That would take me 5 to 6 times that amount of time and effort over the course of a week, driving to and from each office, waiting in the waiting room, and then eventually getting the treatment and going back home. I don't have that kind of time, and I know you don't either, and it shouldn't take you that much time to fix what's wrong with you. Talk to the team that I trust, balancewellspace.com. Brand new offices in Lowry, balancewellspace.com. Right across the street from Hangar 2, plenty of parking and tons of shady trees, which is important for me. Tell them you heard about it here on the Jeff and Bill Show, but balancewellspace.com. I want them to make the same changes in your life that they are currently making in mine. Balancewellspace.com. Back to you, Jeff.
Fantastic. Glad you're getting the treatment, Bill. That's wonderful. All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Man, powerful hour as we dove into kind of our personal experiences with NICUs and our children. And mine spent 94 days in the hospital and then finally getting out, and how the technology is just improving, which is very, very cool to save these babies' lives as young as 22 weeks now. They're down to about like a 67% success rate of saving babies at 22 weeks. That's the second trimester.
Jeez. And
here's amazing.
And here's the thing is that if we were going to put forward an idea of, single payer medical care, I think we can get on board with that one. I think that if we said, okay, here is one aspect where we're going to make sure that this is just covered, just this one aspect of when these babies are born so young, that we're going to make sure that the families don't have to deal with the financial burden, that all of that is going to be taken care of. I think we could probably get enough votes on that one to make that happen.
I'm a big pro-life family guy, so if it's saving babies' lives, I'm probably on board with it. So
I think so, man. See, this is how we can be very, very, very emotional, and we can also solve the world's problems. That's why you listen.
That's right. The key too is technology development, and these NICU operations have just been, because of the free market nature of our healthcare system as well, been able to develop technology that saves these babies' lives at a younger. I mean, these like little intubation tubes that get these babies to breathe is just amazing. And how they keep them warm. Bill, I got to tell you one story that was amazing.
Yeah, please.
About our experience. So you're next to all these other families. So you got all these like little NICUs in a big circle, and the nurses go around throughout the day and take care of the babies, and they're all kind of in one centralized room.
Yeah.
It looks a little bit like the Matrix, but that's kind of a bad description because of how cold the Matrix is, right? We're just using your body for energy. So one time I was sitting there, and the child next to us coded out, which means he stopped breathing. And that just happens sometimes to little preemies. They just aren't used to doing it. So their body just forgets to do it. And so we're sitting there watching all the alarms go off. I mean, they've got this big rigmarole system with all these devices that are measuring every aspect of the baby, and all the alarms go off. And so the nurse runs up and she hits a button, and it's one button.
Yeah.
And the incubator flies up to baby level. The lid of it shoots up really high so that the doctors can immediately get to the child. They did work on him. He's great. He's fine. He survived. No problems whatsoever. He's a perfectly healthy 15-year-old boy today. We're still friends on Facebook with. But those points about those doctors and nurses being amazing saved his life, and the whole thing is set up for them to instantly get there.
That's
when
amazing.
they need to.
Incredible.
And put the work on the baby and get him back. So that was
amazing.
very, very cool.
That is so cool.
Billy, I want to get to this just real quick before we get to the news break here, or before we get to commercial break. But Sharona Bishop is on a stand up in the Mesa County trial now with Tina Peters. So the prosecution rested yesterday. If you remember, Tina Peters, the county clerk in Mesa County, on trial, facing a number of charges with regards to identity theft and those types of things. And Sharona Bishop getting up there, and she'll be testifying a little bit yesterday and some today. So we'll be continuing to follow this. We'll give you an update on the trial as it continues to go on. But so that's a name that some people on the show will know.
Yes, they will. And
she's a conservative activist.
Yeah, America's mom. And
That's right.
It's been interesting to follow some of, and I've been doing too close, some of the stuff coming out of the Peters trial. And I'm curious to see about the defense approach, because the defense approach appears to be the prosecution is lying to you. And that has a little bit of weight to it as far as when you're going to use that as a defense and how you're going to execute that. So if they feel as confident as they are in that defense, I'm really curious to see what they've got. It's no prejudgment, anything like that. If that's what they're going to do, I want to see what they've got. I'm curious. I want to see where this goes.
We'll continue to cover that and more coming up next. You choose the news. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with Tulsi Gabbard. Yes, she's going to join the Jeff and Bill show. Federal Air Marshal whistleblowers report Tulsi Gabbard actively under surveillance via Quiet Skies program in the TSA. We'll get the update from her in the 9 o'clock hour. But in the meantime, Billy, it's time to be a little silly with You Choose the News.
Yes, it is. And those of you that have been paying attention know it is Friday. So that means it is time for the Loser Edition.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
A losers club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, it is the Loser Edition of
Billy,
You Choose
I got
the News.
PTSD from middle school listening to all those people
I know.
call me a loser.
Me too, my friend. Me too. I heard that so many times. My favorite one is right at the end. The Robin Williams comes out of Mrs. Doubtfire saying, "Loser," where he's mad at the guy that his ex-wife is dating. Yeah, so that's my favorite one. Heard that so many times. Bunch of losers. Heard that walking onto the field. Heard that in the hallways. Heard that just everywhere.
When I ask girls out.
Oh yeah, get that one. I heard that a lot. Why would I date you, you loser? Get away from me. I don't want the cooties. Like yeah, exactly. Oh, he touched me. Oh, hurt so many things. Well, just like our sad experiences in middle school, high school, and beyond, we are going to share some sad experiences of other humans. It is called You Choose the News. We scoured the interwebs earlier this week for really dumb stories, but these are the stories that both Mr. Hunt and Mr. Olson deemed unworthy of our attention. They have a second shot at glory today, but Blake Olson is recharging his computer or washing the hamster that has to run in the circle in order to make sure the power runs or something. He's stuck in the Blake Olson newsroom at this point and can't get out, so he will join us at the top of the hour, but not now. So it's just going to be up to Jeff to choose these stories. Sir, I hope you can handle the pressure. Alrighty, here we go. Headlines. Maybe it's about innovation. I'm sorry, maybe it's about motivation. Helps if I can read. Parish outreach attracts attention. Headline number 2. Number 3, category of beverage going on brand. And headline number 4, worst marketing job ever. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Let's start with the parish outreach. I'm interested in this one.
Parish outreach attracting attention. We're traveling all the way to Austria for this one. Recently, a 38-year-old cleric and a 30-year-old citizen attracted a little bit of attention because of their parish outreach in Vienna. No, they were not spreading the good word. They were not out trying to save souls. They were dealing meth. Yes, methamphetamines. They were actually concocting the meth inside the parish rectory. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. The Austrian Catholic priest turned the rectory into a meth house.
Oh, this is the next generation of Breaking Bad.
Exactly. And then again, the idea is it's wonderful one-stop shop because, again, you can come there, you can get your drugs, and then you can get confession for all the bad things you did to get the drugs. And then all the bad things you're going to do with the drugs. So, yes, again, one-stop shop.
The church has never had so much money.
Never. They were wondering, wow, look
like
at this.
I've always said, if your pastor's driving a Lambo, find a new pastor.
Absolutely. That is so true. Okay, second choice this morning, sir. Maybe it's about motivation, category of beverage going on brand, or worst marketing job ever.
Let's do the worst marketing job ever.
This is the worst marketing job ever. Okay, it's Friday. If you think your job sucks, at least you're not working with the Taliban trying to get tourists to go to Afghanistan. Yes, that's a real job. Yes.
Really?
Yes, the Taliban announced this week they want to do consumer outreach. They're upset that not everybody's coming to explore the beauty that is Afghanistan with all of the restrictions. They are shocked. Nobody wants to participate. So, yeah.
I think they should go the Nebraska route. You remember Nebraska was... it's not right for everybody. Just go right at the problems you have and be honest. We promise you will keep your head.
Great. Yes, exactly.
Visit Afghanistan. We promise you'll keep your head.
Yes, and most of your fingers. It depends. Yeah, but again, think about it. How are you going to get judged for that? Someone comes to you, congratulations today, Mr. Hunt. You are now in charge of marketing for tourism in Afghanistan. You're like, well, this is going to suck. I mean, what is the possible message? What do
They'll
you have?
figure out a way. Look, if they can get Kamala Harris propped up to become the next president of the United States, there's a system out there that can get you to visit Afghanistan.
I got nothing on that one. I can't follow that. That's too good. That is too good, man. Okay, we got to move on to the final headline. Maybe it's all about motivation or a category of beverage going on brand. What do you choose?
Let's do category of beverage.
Yeah, category of beverage going on brand. Southwest Airlines says their flight attendants are having to deal with a brand new problem. Evidently, their little tiny sodas are getting big mad and going boom. The problem is the recent heat wave. Yes, they don't chill the beverages all the time inside of the planes, and some of the flight attendants have been injured by exploding cans. When they're reaching in to get them, the can will go all over the place. Not only is it sticky and wet, but it's been cutting fingers. There have been 12, 13, 15 stitches given to some of the flight attendants because of this. The easy fix is to simply chill the beverages. However, Southwest Airlines says, that costs money, right? How about we just deal with the explosions? So they're trying to do something about it, but just be careful that, if you go on an airplane, the big pop might not be from the soda pop, maybe not a bomb or anything else, but it could be just coming from the cans. So got to be careful with that one. I think they should just
think about all that. We talk about this all the time, all the stress we put on teachers, police officers, and I put right up there flight attendants. Crap they have to put up with on a daily basis because they have to interact with the general public.
Yep. And
it's just amazing.
In a closed system where nobody really wants to be there, they often have to tell you no. And then sometimes you walk in that plane afterwards and they're like, they didn't seem to go here and clean up. And then you look at it and go, well, would you? I mean, is that what you do going through this place? There's no way. There's no way. Well, that's the end of You Choose the News. That is all the silliness for today.
The Tulsi Gabbard joins us in the 9 o'clock hour. She's on the terrorist watch list. As a result, we think of political retribution. We'll get response directly from her. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Which one is going to be on the list? Which one was?
I'm going to let this play there, Billy Boy. It is Friday, August 9th, 9 a.m. in the Mile High City, and that is a good Friday vibe right there.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. We need chicken fried on here, too. I don't know if I can pull that out of the system. We need that one. Yeah.
Well,
that's a good Friday song.
TGIF to all of our
Yes,
listeners
you made
out
it.
there. We're having a ton of fun today, and coming up in this hour, a little bit later in the show, Tulsi Gabbard's going to be joining us. I want you to hear just the headline here. We'll get into the article, and then we'll get to her a little bit later. But Federal Air Marshal whistleblowers report Tulsi Gabbard actively under surveillance via Quiet Skies program. I've gotten to know Tulsi personally over the years. She's spoken at a few different Western conservative summits. She is the real deal. She is an American hero. I absolutely think the world of her, and still to this point, believe she would have been the best pick for Donald Trump to make with regards to becoming the vice presidential nominee. I hope there's room in his cabinet for her, because she's a real true stateswoman. So very excited to talk to her, but we're going to get into the details of this right after the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 61 and cloudy, expecting a high of 75 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast. Coming up, our top story.
How many chances do you get? My answer to that is as many chances as you need.
Just a reminder that the lefty socialist communists are idiots and don't believe in paying the price for doing crime. That's the most ridiculous sound and interview that we heard this week as we celebrate that or not. Tim Walz's wife, who opened the windows in their home so she could smell the burning tires during the George Floyd riots in 2020. And that's not a joke. It reminded her of the great work that these criminals were doing for their city. But more than likely, and most importantly, the biggest issue this fall will be the economy again.
Trump leads Harris 48 to 46% overall in the CNBC All-American Economic Survey. But on the economy, Trump leads Harris by 2-1. 79% of Republicans believe their economic fortunes will improve with Trump in the White House. Just 48% of Democrats believe they will be better off if Harris wins, compared to 42% who say it makes no difference. Inflation and the cost of living continues to be a top issue of concern for voters. Trump has a 12-point lead on the second most important issue, the country's economy overall. Aaron Real, NBC News Radio.
Trump held another press conference last night so the American people know what he stands for. Imagine that. Meanwhile, Kamala Khan is on day 19. We can't dance together. We can't talk at all. 19 days since she has had a press conference, answered questions from reporters, or challenged. Those voters on the left, they want to know who you are, what you stand for, your track record, or do they? Who am I fooling on that one? Okay, her clown car sidekick, Tim Walz, has Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talking.
You know, this is a guy that's out there. He's got this line in the stump speech saying, you know, our neighbors can do what they want. Mind your own damn business. Fine. Then why did you set up a snitch hotline for neighbors to report on their neighbors for violating your draconian COVID restrictions? That's not minding your own damn business. That's government overreach.
And influencer Steven Crowder, a comedian, also taken off YouTube again, even though YouTube is full of disgusting content all over the place. Google and YouTube hate free speech and content they don't agree with, and they work with two huge advertising organizations who want to destroy conservative thought and voices on the right.
We're back to ABC, NBC, CBS. Back in the day where there are only 3 networks, there are only a handful of companies that monopolize most of the space, and another handful of companies who monopolize the advertising space that allows them to exist. And they've decided that your viewpoint, that of half the country, American exceptionalism, First Amendment, Second Amendment, God, faith, family, that's not allowed on the big boy networks, which are now YouTube and Google. But they've gone a step further, and they've said, you know what? We want to take everything else. Nope, no Rumble, no alternative. Even though you're not dependent upon us as advertisers, we don't like that. We know you're independent. You've got Mug Club. No. We want to make it so that you can't broadcast at all. These are mob tactics.
He's on Rumble right now as they try to continue getting the word out.
You got to be different. You got to be yourself in the world. And that's what I always wanted to be.
A showman. One of the greatest golfers of all time has died. Chichi Rodriguez came from a poor family in Puerto Rico and emerged as a Hall of Famer. 8 titles on tour and another 22 on the senior tour. And who will ever forget the WKRP episode?
Winner of this week's Gulf Coast Golf Classic was Chai Rodriguez. Chai finished with a 9 under par score.
Chichi Rodriguez.
Hopefully, Mr. Rodriguez will play up.
Oh, that is the best.
Isn't that great?
You are so much fun.
I had a chance to talk to him about it one time in Texas, and he loved that episode, man. That was so funny.
Oh,
I think so many people, when they hear Chichi Rodriguez, they think about that Les Nessman.
The weird part is when you mentioned Chichi earlier today, that's exactly where my head went. It was Rodriguez. Yes.
I figured it did.
Dude.
Everyone does it. It's so funny. I even talked to Jim Nance about that one time.
No.
Yeah, he thinks about it when he says Rodriguez and all the golf fans.
And the thing that makes that joke so good is that even after corrected, Nessman continues with a mispronunciation. He still does it. Yes, that's the best part. Yes,
so good, man. I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you appreciated it.
Nobody has ever won 2 gold medals in this event, let alone back-to-back. Sydney
McLaughlin Barone, a world record in the women's 400-meter hurdles. Gold medal goes to her. Also, the USA men over Nikola Jokic and Serbia in the semifinals. They head to the championship game. The Braves are in town tonight at Coors Field. Rockies lost to the Mets last night, and the Broncos in action this weekend at the Colts. Let's see here. I need to update it here. Okay, 57 in Parker, 58 in North Glen, and 61 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on the Power Hour Friday. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The unseasonably cool conditions will continue for Denver in the Front Range today, warming up a bit this weekend, but thunderstorms will be a common fixture each afternoon and evening. Low 70s today, partly and mostly cloudy with showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms lingering into tonight. 80s for highs Saturday and Sunday with more good chances of late-day thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by BranchPlanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at BranchPlanning.com or call 720-651-9800. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
Coming up later in this hour, Tulsi Gabbard's going to join us live. Big story breaking. Federal Air Marshal whistleblowers reporting that Tulsi Gabbard is actively under surveillance via Quiet Skies program. This is where they literally send like dog sniffing or bomb sniffing dogs, dog sniffing dogs. I guess all dogs are dog sniffing dogs.
That's true.
Bomb sniffing dogs and air marshals on every flight she has to fly.
Now that's important. This means that based on the list that she is on, it is on a specific list. And it means that when her name pops up in any of the bookings on any flight, it raises a red flag inside of the government, and they send a marshal specifically to fly on the plane with her. Sometimes, in some situations, based on where she is either departing from or traveling to, it could be multiple marshals, more than one on the flight because of Tulsi Gabbard.
Listen to
That's
this.
weird.
She has 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security specialist, which is about explosives, and 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight she boards.
Jeez. That's crazy.
The heck? And then this gets into the reason why is because she's been calling out like Kamala Harris in the national security state. So this article, which comes from Undercover DC, is basically saying this is political retribution.
Yeah.
And if this is the case, this is like what I talk about when you get into like deep state stuff, where this has nothing to do with actual security. This is the use of government resources to go after a political opponent. So I'm really interested to get the details on this. Before we get into the article and issue more, I want to talk to you about Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. I've gotten to know Gay through this position. She's been into the studio multiple times to answer your questions about the housing market. She is amazing. She is a real gem, full of light, full of life, just full of the spirit of Jesus Christ. Her faith is very important to her. And believe me, her light shines. If you are considering selling your home, go with the team that is going to not only give you top level service, but will also help you earn more from the sale of your home than any other agent. Gay Ribble is proven to get more for her sellers because they have ready buyers looking for a home in your area. They don't just make this claim. They can sit down and actually show you a list of over 14,700 buyers. This gives you an immediate advantage. Sure, you can hire any agent to sell your home. We all know your family members and your neighbors want your business, but isn't it all about how much you're going to put into your pocket after closing? This is a business deal. This is about getting money for your family. The Empower Home team specializes in making sure you make the most amount of money. They will sell your home at your price, or Gay will buy it herself. Guaranteed. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We're going to continue with this story of Tulsi Gabbard being put under surveillance by the TSA and making her fly with bomb-sniffing dogs and federal agents everywhere she goes, because they consider her a threat. Why is that? And more. We'll give you the details. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
from a website called Uncovered DC. Federal Air Marshal whistleblowers report Tulsi Gabbard actively under surveillance via the Quiet Skies program. Now, what you don't know is that when you're on the list, you don't know you're on the list. For security reasons and individuals enrolled in the program without knowledge. This is because they believe the federal government believes you are a threat.
Yeah.
And they're going to put federal air marshals, 3 of them, plus K9 teams on every plane you fly on. So just think about the government resources being used. These dudes and gals have to get on a plane anywhere you fly. And if you're Tulsi Gabbard, you're flying all over the place. You're constantly speaking. Lincoln Day dinners, events, Western Conservative Summit, those types of things. And they got to follow you around. The person who blew the whistle on this says that Gabbard's enrollment in Quiet Skies is likely politically motivated. Air marshals were first assigned to Gabbard on July 23rd, a day after she criticized Kamala Harris, Biden, and the national security state in an interview with Laura Ingraham. The federal air marshals were mobilized on July 24th and assigned to her first flight with her on July 25th. Is that wild?
That is.
In the
Also,
context of what has transpired, go ahead.
That seems remarkably efficient for the government. Remarkably efficient. I mean, of all the times you're like, this is the thing that you do quickly? This? Not the rest of the stuff. Okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, it just seems way too quick. Very, very efficient. I'm very surprised by how efficient that was at that time. Not saying it didn't happen. I agree. But just like, great. So we can't get anything else done on time, but this we can do quickly. Thank you so much. Yeah,
she's a
Tulsi.
real threat.
Yeah, obviously.
By the way,
yes.
she has like a totally unblemished record in the military. I think 20 plus years in the military. So, I mean, she's a real, true, genuine American hero. They write, in the context of what has transpired, there's ample reason to speculate that Gabbard may have been placed on Quiet Skies because of her viewpoints and recent fallout with the Democrat Party. Gabbard fell out of favor with the Democrat Party when she switched parties to become an independent in 2022. In addition, during her 2020 presidential campaign, Gabbard was highly critical of U.S. interventionism and endless wars. She continues to be very outspoken and critical of the Biden administration. Hillary Clinton smeared Gabbard during the 2020 campaign by suggesting she was a Russian asset. Gabbard answered Clinton with a defamation lawsuit filed in 2020. And I guess this isn't just Gabbard. What this article points out is that this is happening to a number of folks throughout the years. What was a straightforward law enforcement function has now been shoved under the TSA, the federal government's bloated administrative arm. And they're trying to get information, and we're even getting some congressional questions happening now. Who's on this list? Some January 6ers are claiming to be on this list as well. But is this fair? Obviously, I mean, January 6th is one thing aside, and if you've made threats against the United States, that's one thing aside as well. But not Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard's active with the military. She serves her country. She's a true, genuine stateswoman. And they're treating her like this. It's just kind of crazy. And I hope members of Congress get to the bottom of this so that we have a sense of what's going on, because this is not American. To use law enforcement to go after political opponents as a result of retribution for statements they've made that you don't like. I mean, maybe I shouldn't go over into Trump lawfare, but it feels like that. It feels like it's the use of the deep state to go after political opponents. She shouldn't be on this list at all.
No, she shouldn't. The question I've got that we think we need to look into is, it does seem that there is some external motivation, some wrong direction on why she was placed on the list. And my question is, where up the ladder was the decision made? And that shouldn't be too hard to trace back. Who was the decision maker in this process? And the reason that I think that you should know it, I should know it, Tulsi should definitely know it, and our listeners should know it, is we need to realize, is this a directive that came out of the Biden White House? Was it something that came out of the Department of Justice? Was it something that came from, and we talk about the idea of these self-empowered government agencies
that become too big for their britches and figure they have to control something? Is it someone there in this agency saying, I know I'm doing the best thing and this is what the White House may want us to do, et cetera, and they feel empowered to do it? Or is it Joe Schmo that's somewhere further down the food chain and is just like, I will get her. I will show her. I will be able to do something that is going to foul things up for her. And is it that type of an idea? My big question in this conversation is, where was the decision made? And we should be able to have a paperwork trail, given the fact that it's the government, not a paperwork. There should be a trail on this one.
Bill, you're thinking like a congressman, because Congressman Tim Burchett has asked these exact questions. He's written a letter to
like
the Transportation Security Administration.
Like congressman, that's an insult.
He wants to know why Tulsi Gabbard may be on this Quiet Skies program. But Bill, I'll be honest with you, nobody ever gets fired for anything. I mean, you've got the FBI saying that they were going to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. Peter Strzok, whatever his name was. You have Lois Lerner with the IRS. You have these Secret Service guys that we still 25 days later don't know that much about what happened the day of the assassination attempt to Donald Trump. And to Blake's point, everybody's still employed. This will get swept under. This is another example that conservatives can point to of what is called the deep state.
Now, the Strzok thing, I think, is a good example. I think Strzok's a very good example, but he's a low-level actor. He was not necessarily in charge of anything, nor could he bend any large investigations or change anything fundamentally towards Trump.
I disagree. He's the only dude that got caught.
But Durham did an entire investigation that ran longer than the Mueller investigation. Didn't find Bupkis. He got nothing.
Yeah,
so
I think he's the only dumb enough to text his mistress.
Well, again,
to brag about how powerful he is.
Durham was empowered by Bill Barr, according to Eileen Cannon, illegally, in order to investigate, and did for 5 years and came back with nothing. And again, you'd have should be some sort of paperwork, et cetera, involved in the FBI, and that's why I think that it's not Christopher Wray at the top of the FBI. If Christopher Wray makes the statements that Strzok does, that's a different ball of wax. I think the Lois Lerner example is more applicable in that situation. I think some of the conclusions are a little bit off, but I think that's more applicable to the ideas where on this food chain is this decision being made, and that's incredibly important. And I can't believe he called me a congressman. Ridiculous. An insult.
I know. There are moments where Billy and I have to talk through. I apologize for calling you a congressman.
And I apologize about what I thought about you when you called me congressman. I love you. You're the best. Oh, God. You're such a good friend.
So, I mean, Tim Burchett's going to investigate this, and we're going to talk with Tulsi Gabbard next after the commercial break about this. But when we talk about the deep state, okay, what I'm talking about is often the use of government funding, government programs, not for their intended purpose. Here, Quiet Skies is intended to target and protect the American people from active threats that could harm them, from another 9/11, for instance, right? There's no reason that I'm aware of that Tulsi Gabbard legitimately should be on this list.
Good point.
It's coming down to the fact that I think it's political retribution. We're going to ask her directly. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Tulsi's next.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Tulsi Gabbard facing some weird issues here. Uncover DC reporting federal air marshal whistleblowers report Tulsi Gabbard actively under surveillance via the Quiet Skies program. Several federal air marshal whistleblowers have come forward with information showing that former U.S. Representative and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard is currently enrolled in the Quiet Skies program. Quiet Skies is a TSA surveillance program with its own compartmentalized suspected terror watch list. It is the same program being weaponized against January 6 defendants and their families. Quiet Skies is allegedly used to protect traveling Americans from suspected domestic terrorists. The photo below is a screenshot of the actual target package used by the FAMs to surveil Gabbard. So this is what they give the federal air marshals, and it's her congressional picture. The whistleblowers first shared this information with the executive director of the Air Marshal National Council, a national advocacy group for the federal air marshals. According to them, at least one of the whistleblowers is ready to go on the record with pertinent documentation. They also shared that Gabbard is unaware she has 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security specialist, which is about explosives, and 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight she boards. They attempted to get in touch with Gabbard, some of these whistleblowers, and we'll see if she's had a chance to talk with them. But they've been testifying a lot about this because there's a number of families that are dealing with it, including an infant son of a January 6th Capitol protester has been put on this list. The guy had served 20 years, an unblemished service is also on the list, unblemished military service, because he attended January 6th. He's on this list. I'm sorry, Bill?
Still working on it. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay, gotcha. For what the federal government calls national security reasons, an individual is enrolled in the program without knowledge. Teams of federal air marshals are assigned to individuals, following and tracking them from when they enter the airport and then all of their flights and transits until they reach their destination. Enrolled individuals usually have a quad SSSS on the bottom right-hand corner of their boarding passes, but not always, They're often flagged for extra searches, frequently so lengthy that they miss their flights. According to the whistleblowers, Gabbard's enrollment in Quiet Skies is likely politically motivated. Air marshals were first assigned to Gabbard on July 23rd, a day after she criticized Kamala Harris, Biden, and the national security state in an interview with Laura Ingraham. I want to thank all the deep state surveillance analysts that listen to conservative talk radio. Unbelievable. The marshals were mobilized on July 24th and assigned to their first flight with her on July 25th. In the context of what has transpired since 2020, there's ample reason to speculate that Gabbard may have been placed on Quiet Skies because of her viewpoints and recent fallout with the Democratic Party. Gabbard fell out of favor with the Democrat Party when she switched parties to become an independent in 2022. In addition, during the 2020 presidential campaign, Gabbard was highly critical of U.S. interventionism and endless wars. She continues to be very outspoken and critical of the Biden administration. Hillary Clinton smeared Gabbard during the 2020 campaign by suggesting she was a Russian asset. Gabbard answered Clinton with a defamation lawsuit filed in 2020. The whistleblowers are outraged with what has transpired with federal air marshals over the past few years. What was a straightforward law enforcement function has now been shoved under the TSA, the federal government's bloated administrative state. The whistleblowers are working overtime to shut down the Quiet Skies program. However, the primary mission is to restore federal air marshals to their rightful place as law enforcement, not political pawns of an administrative state. Man, this is just another reason, in my opinion, that everything Donald Trump's going through, the attacks he's facing, when I say that conservatives supported him in a primary because they were sick and tired of how big and bloated the federal government has become, and they wanted somebody with sharp elbows to go in and confront, the crap that this government puts on like this. That's just amazing to me. I mean, this is the stuff. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. So far, still working behind the scenes. Things have gotten a little complicated with Tulsi. We're still working on that, but we do have a phone call you can talk to for a minute while I'm working still behind the scenes. But Dave has given us a call from Arvada, and he wants to talk about the no-fly list. So good morning, Dave. Thanks for the call.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, my thoughts are that, for 3 air marshals and a dog and all of that to intimidate her, how does that intimidate her if she doesn't even know about it? And nobody else does. It makes more sense to me that they are aware of a threat against her. And if she goes down,
it's a threat against her. Huh.
I do. And because it makes more sense that way, if she is threatened, they got to protect the people on that plane. And that makes more sense. I mean, 3 people or 3 air marshals and a dog sniffer makes more sense that you're protecting an entire plane and not getting even, so to speak, with Gabbard. It just doesn't make any sense.
To me, that doesn't make sense because why are you forcing her to go through extra security all the time, right? So one of the things they point out in this article is that people on this list are oftentimes put through additional security screenings to the point that they sometimes miss their planes. So if it was to protect her, why put her through that?
Well, I agree with the harassment is definitely could be part of an intimidation and harassment to put her through extra security and screening. But she doesn't know about the air marshals. She doesn't know about the dogs, and it affects her in no way, shape, or form. And so maybe they're worried somebody's going to plant something on her that she's not aware of. And I'll take this even a step further. We saw how bad the Secret Service was in regards to their willingness to put extra security on Trump. Well, if they informed Gabbard that they had reason to believe that there's a credible threat against her, they would be obligated to step up the Secret Service coverage for her. And as much as I hate to say it, they don't strike me as somebody who might be just willing to A, step up and tell her, and B, put the extra security in that it needs to be. They've demonstrated it in the past. So I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. And I don't see how 3 air marshals and a dog on a plane is at all intimidation. So I see that as separate from checking her bags, which would also make sense with my scenario.
Yeah, David, I just see it differently. To me, it reeks of when you sick IRS agents on your political opponents. Yeah, you're trying to do your job and to make sure everybody is paying their taxes, but it's such a rigmarole for the person that has to be audited and to go through those details that this is what it strikes me as, is something like when you use the power of government to just be a pain in the butt to your political opponents and follow them around with agents all the time, bring them through extra screening. Now you put her on a terrorist watch list. I mean, any political opponent can use that against her. Now, that's what it seems like to me. Not that they're trying to protect her, because I've never heard of anybody else being protected in the same way that Tulsi Gabbard is being treated here.
Well, and that's just it. Why would we hear of it? And is she, in fact, on a terrorist watch list? Doesn't sound like
well,
it.
That's what this list is. It's a terrorist watch list called Quiet Skies.
Yeah. And it seems like the information we have that she has been placed on it because she has people following her. But yeah, the issue is you're outlining why was it done and who made the decision, I think are very important in this conversation. I hadn't thought about that as far as could it be that there would be a threat against her? I would say that I would hope, okay, I'm not going to assume this, but I would hope that if there was a threat against Tulsi Gabbard or any other person in that position, that the government would come and tell them that, hey, maybe you need to be a little more careful, that they would involve them in the conversation. The fact that from the information we have right now, that Tulsi was not involved in this conversation leads me to believe something else, just personally.
Well, and it's all, right now it's all pie in the sky. But yeah, anyways, it was fun to have the discussion. I just wanted to put it out there. If it sticks, it sticks.
No, it's a great idea, man.
And so, yeah, hey, you guys have a great day, man.
You too, man. Enjoy your weekend.
You,
and please call us again, Dave. Appreciate that. That's interesting, though.
That
I
was
hadn't
a
thought
good
about
conversation.
Yeah.
So we're working to try to get Tulsi.
We're working hard.
On at 10
or
9:30.
I know. And the assistant person isn't answering either. I've called him a half dozen times. I've left him 3 messages. I've texted him twice. I'm going to go on a 3rd text. Nothing yet, but this is sometimes what happens in radio. Yeah, especially. That's okay. We'll get with her again if we don't today.
So, oh yeah, she's great, and I've gotten to work with her. Let me tell you a few things about Tulsi real quick. And there is speculation, Billy. I saw an article today that Trump may be looking at her for Secretary of Defense.
That would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
That would be really interesting. I can get behind that. I can really get behind that one. That'd be a nice pick. I'd like that.
Would
one.
you?
Yeah.
Really? Why would you get behind that?
I like her independence. I like her background as far as the military experience. I believe that while she does play in politics, that she does try to keep the politics out of the military side of things. And I think that her perspective of being, former Dem, now becoming more conservative, would add something interesting inside of that office. I think that in many ways, okay, we're going to do a Kamala Harris thing here. She has been unburdened and whatever the hell else Kamala says. That's it, because she's left the Democrat Party. So now, so that's what I think. I think where she could be is she could be a very, very interesting voice inside of that room. And because of her military experience, I think that it would let her navigate the relationship with the generals and the DOJ in a very effective, but also very different way. She's intriguing. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
So she is an old school liberal, the way you are kind of an old school liberal, Billy. I don't put you in the progressive
I appreciate that.
category. You're more in the kind of John F. Kennedy, Berkeley 1960s kind of free speech category, which is where Tulsi hung out in.
And it's also why I don't fit neatly into any political party here in Colorado. It's why I left. And again, it's weird for me to tell our listeners this. I've never been a registered Democrat. I was a registered Republican. But 2 decades ago, I changed to unaffiliated, in part because of exactly what Jeff's describing. Exactly that. Yeah, it's fair.
So Tulsi's got a really fascinating background. So her parents were basically like the focus on the family leaders of Hawaii.
Yeah.
So the pro-life, pro-traditional marriage. I think her dad was the last Republican state senator they had for a while. And so she comes from a very conservative, Bible-believing Christian family. Now, I'm not sure she shares all of their values, but that's her background. And the thing I've noticed about Tulsi is she doesn't get overwhelmed being around conservatives. Like I have people that are progressive and they walk into a room with conservatives and they literally don't know how to talk. They're so confused and concerned. And they just wear it on their sleeves that they feel uncomfortable. Tulsi's not the same way with this. In fact, she's very comfortable around Bible-believing evangelical Christians. So I brought, on average, about 50 to 60 speakers per year to the Western Conservative Summit. I did this for 8 years, and I got to know everybody. I got to pretty much know everybody in the conservative movement, how they were on stage and who they were in their own personal lives, right? And they're, in some cases, there's a difference. There's a difference between how somebody acts on stage and who they are backstage. I may not get into all the names, right? Candace Owens, but I will. But I will tell you, there are some that aren't the nicest backstage, and others feel very honored and welcomed to be a part of it, and they're excited. Tulsi was incredibly kind. So she would come in for 2 days and spend the entire time with us at the Western Conservative Summit. She wouldn't just kind of run off, do her speech and leave and not talk to anybody. She would mingle with all the donors. She would hang out with all the high school and college kids that were there. She'd literally spend 2 full days with us, just like you would hang out with your friends.
Yeah, wow.
That's who Tulsi Gabbard is. She is real, legitimate. And that's why I thought that Donald Trump should have picked her. And I still do. I like J.D. Vance, but as this race is going, I still think that Tulsi Gabbard would have been a much more compelling vice presidential candidate. She would have been a woman, which would have offered a unique perspective. She's got the military background. J.D. Vance has got that too, but she has this strong independent streak, which I think the American people are just really hungry for right now. I don't know. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the Americans would be hungry for that independent streak. What I would be worried about, and this would be the strategy as far as Trump picking her, and I know she would be a very strong choice, is could the MAGA faithful necessarily embrace her, given the fact that at one point she was even a Democrat? And I think that's what makes it difficult to choose her, because some people inside of the Trump base would feel it as a betrayal. However, I think you're right that strategically it is a very, very intelligent pick because of her being a former Democrat and where she is now and her messaging and how effective she is during it. And she ticks a lot of the right boxes based on, from where I sit, from strategy side, some of the weaknesses inside of Trump, that she fills in some of those holes and gaps. And then you have what looks like, a complete solid line because she fills in the holes that I feel are there with Trump. Yeah, she would have been a very, very solid choice, but nearly impossible to get her behind. Yeah.
Billy, what her media booker texted, said she's got it on her calendar. She's got the right number. She's going to check with her. What if she's being searched by TSA? Right?
Yeah. Then we'll break the news first. That would be so good.
That's right.
That'd be great.
Tulsi missed the show because she's being harassed by, by
exactly
the
what we're
TSA
talking
agents.
about. That would be perfect.
I think we got a caller, right? Let's go to Gary.
Yeah, we got Gary. Hey, morning, Gary. How you doing?
Gary, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning. I think I told you guys a couple weeks ago that I was going to vote for Trump. Because I think his policies are better than the Democrats, primarily maintaining the tax cuts. And I wanted to ask you, his solution, he doesn't do a very good job about how he's going to eliminate inflation and stimulate the economy. It seems like his his answer is always drill, baby, drill. It's like, all right, that's a cute line. But I'm starting to question, and this isn't going to change whether or not I vote for him. I'll vote for him one way or the other. But I really question whether or not his administration is going to result in higher inflation or lower inflation. I'm starting to think it's going to be higher inflation.
Well, there's a few things that concern me about his economic plan. One are tariffs. The tariffs remind me of minimum wage, where the business is not just going to eat the cost. They're going to pass it on to the consumer, which means everything's going to get more expensive if we go this route. So that concerns me. Two, he's never been a hawk about stopping the spending of the federal government. So I think we're going to see ourselves even accumulate more debt. But Gary, here's the deal. I do believe that there's a regulation issue between Democrats and Republicans, where Republicans are actively working to reduce regulations on business, which is a cost. When you have to comply with all these rules and all these laws that come from the federal government, you typically are hiring somebody to do that. That's a cost on the business. And Democrats will regulate based upon special interests what they think is right, whether it's green new energy or whatever else, DEI, whatever, they'll regulate businesses, and that will drive up costs. So I think the most compelling argument that Trump does have is, one, energy independence and allowing more energy independence to take place. But then secondly, the deregulation. That is a compelling argument. You've had Chevron deference, which is going to help with that, the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think his presidency will actively work to better deregulate our economy, which creates a sense of opportunity, of optimism within businesses, and more confidence in our economy. What say you?
Well, I think the oil and gas companies are releasing earnings, and they have record profits. Shell Corporation blew the top out. I don't. If Trump says drill, baby, drill, they're going to say, no, we're not drilling, baby, drilling. We're maintaining our profits, because that's more important than your drill, baby, drill saying. So I have a lot of doubt whether or not these oil corporations are going to drill, baby, drill, because Donald Trump wants them to.
Yeah, Gary, I like what you're saying right there, because one of the things that Trump was highlighting, I think it was yesterday, either in his Truth Social or in the press conference that he did, the low price of gas and low cost of a barrel of oil. American oil companies would not stand for that. American oil companies would lose their mind if we have $1.87 oil. They would stop drilling immediately in America because it costs them more to pull it out of the ground.
You're right.
But guys, you have to keep in mind too, Chevron is leaving California because the left right now is actively punishing them. So they're actually getting out of here, heading back to Texas. This is the first time in like 100 years that Chevron's had to leave. Well, Gary, we're just out of time. Folks, we apologize. It's live radio. Sometimes things happen, and we just can't get Tulsi on in time, but that happened here. So you're listening to the Jeff.